Um, all right, so yeah, like I said, this week we just jumping right into it, and I know we touched on this topic. We touched on this topic maybe a couple weeks ago, and then the Most High just led me to teach on a couple different things, and now we're going back to this works situation. And I guess some of the people I know, a couple people weren't here when I covered this in the first time. So I'll try to do like a quick overview of what was said. And it's been a couple weeks in general. So I know, people can kind of miss or misremember the topics or the points, what was said. Plus, I was looking at it and the way that I ended up doing it, the way things flow, it's kind of important to have that foundation the way I did it, because when you get to like the New Testament thing, the wording and stuff of things it can throw you off. And that's why having a foundation, is so important with this. So I pray, the Most High, guide my words and, his words speak through me, and it's not me. And I'm still learning just like, everyone else. I'm not like a master teacher or anything like that by any means. I don't have all the answers. There's the class, again, just like a lot of them, I got to a point and then I felt like it started to get off the rails because it's so many details that you kind of got to go back and cover, or you could go back and cover to really make the point, full. But I didn't want to overwhelm myself and I didn't want to overwhelm y'all. So I think it's in a good package to be able to understand the overall point. And then hopefully I don't think this is the end for this class, because this topic right here, we've covered it many times before in different ways, but I just saw how many layers it was to this. So I think it will be in the future. Go back and get some of the not minute, but like some of the key things that, we can touch on, or questionable things. So yeah, this class is about works, as we can see here. And this part is kind of like what we talked about last time, part one. So works, because it's kind of like a taboo thing for Christians. I would say it's something that we've been taught that now is faith and faith alone and grace. So this word specifically, because we could talk about keeping the law, and that's one angle to take at it. And of course, that's what works entails. But when you use this word specifically, it's like a trigger word. I feel like, oh, it's not by works, not by works. And, over the course of just reading different things, or reading the scriptures over time and learning, and it's been years now, I always have little images of like scriptures and concepts of what was said pop into my mind. And, honestly, this class was inspired a long time ago by Virgil. And both times it was for me to do it, he wasn't here. And this was when he first came, he asked about, he was like, well, pretty much, you don't have to keep the commandments, or you don't have to do anything for either, salvation or whatever the case may be. And I had started showing them some precepts in the class, but in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna do a class so I can show them. So it's inspired by my brother. I hope he is blessed and safe and encapsulated. He was busy today. But this class really, it was definitely sparked by him. Last time we talked about a lot of dogma that Marah has been using that term, and it's basically Christian positions, things that we've been taught. And one thing I like that the Most High has led me to the teaching that Marah has done, and he was able to bring out. I like to know the origin of where things come from. That's just my personality. I like to know all the details, because I feel like if I know all the details, then I can fully make a decision, like comparably or in my right state of mind. Like if I choose right or wrong here, it was on me. And that's one thing I pray, like, Father, just, I think even Nariah as well, no longer let us be deceived. Like, just help us to fully understand. So if we go astray, like, it's on us. Let us not be ignorant to his word, his ways. So I'm thankful that he's continuing to reveal himself in different means and manners. So I'm not going to play this video again, but Martin Luther basically is the father of this Protestant Reformation, which is a protest against the Catholics, is the best way to say it. And he was the one who pretty much fathered the term, or the doctrine that we use today of being saved by grace and grace alone. So I just wanted to cover that and introduce him. But to see the video and see everything, just go back. I think this one's on the channel. Part 1 is on the channel. So just go back and watch this. It's same title, Works. And then you can see this video. He basically breaks down 3 positions that Martin Luther takes, and one of them is that we're saved by, grace, and grace alone.
Finally,
and just an immediate response to that video, or that doctrine of saved by grace and grace alone.
Grace versus works.
It's so on the channel, it's titled Grace versus Works. And you'll be able to see this first part. These first few slides will all be on there. I think I even have a slide that says end of part 1 in here. So that's where that last video on YouTube will stop. I just wanted to briefly kind of introduce it, because so many of these things flow together. And I didn't have any videos this time. I didn't have any conspiracy or any, even though it's a lot of stuff going on. Maybe next time I'll bring some of that out, or maybe at the end, because there is one that I wanted to show, but maybe we'll do that at the end. So an immediate response to that doctrine of grace only is just the words of the Messiah. So I had put that on the screen, and this is from Matthew chapter 7, and it just reads briefly, therefore, everyone who heareth these sayings of mine, and we know those sayings are not of Yahushua, but they're of the Father. And then he says, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man. So he's already, I just wanted to start the class off with showing that, it's an immediate contradiction to that doctrine. And he says, I liken this person who doeth the sayings, likened to a wise man who built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, yet it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. So that is showing that the commandments, the sayings of the Father that was given to us from the beginning, that's your foundation. Your foundation has to be strong. Your foundation has to be solid. You have something, Chef?
I'll say John 15:4.
Go ahead.
We're known as branches. He's the vine. It says, abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine. No more can ye, except ye abide in me. Con.
And I actually ran, like I was saying at the end, I started running into all these sayings that the Messiah said, and I was like, I kind of want to just do a whole section on that. But it just, like I said, the Most High will kind of like pour and pour and pour, and then it's like, okay, here you go. And I was just like, oh, yeah. So I try to keep it concise as possible. But maybe at the end, because I screenshotted some, we can just read some of them out loud.
Just we've read this so many times before, but just another witness that this even this so-called New Testament is for us. The end of that verse says, "Which built his house upon a rock," and that could be a Hebrewism, because how was the commandments written? Upon a rock.
Upon a rock. And also too, it was founded upon a rock. That rock was Yahweh Shai. So it's so many layers to it. And I like this song because he's reading this precept in it, and I just put the first little part that's reading this part. So again, I mean that I love that song, and I was listening to it when I was first building this class, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is going right with what the Most High wants me to bring out. So all praises for that. And it actually continues, later on. So we started off painting a picture of, instead of coming and saying, oh, let's go to the law and talk about keeping the commandment specifically, I wanted to talk about how would you be judged, or what does the word say about what's being tried in us, and how would we be viewed and defined. And it led me to these precepts about being tried by fire. And again, this part is just a review. So Salakia for just kind of trying to breeze through. So I already had the key verses on the screen. And this was from Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 1 through 11, and verse 6 and 7. Verse 6 says, as in the furnace hath he tried them and received them as a burnt offering, trying us. And in the time of their visitation, they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble. Verse 11, for whosoever despiseth wisdom and nurture, he is miserable, and their hope is vain. Their labors is unfruitful. Labors is considered the same, similar to works. Their labors is unfruitful, and their works unprofitable. So it's already starting off as what's going to be tried by fire is what you have done. Is your works. Are you producing good fruit? Are you producing things that are unfruitful? So I'm like, okay, yeah, this is already building so many contradictions into what that position of grace and faith alone that we've been taught our whole life. Now, moving into the New Testament, it brings it out again. And 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 10 through 15, the key verses is on the screen. It says, every man's work shall be made manifest, meaning that your work is going to come up pretty much to be judged, to be made known, to be made aware of. And it says, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work to see of what sort it is. So the things that we do here will be tried, and the Most High through his Son will see, what sort of works we have put forth. If any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by the fire. And we talked about that last time. To get the full clarity on that, it's in the video. But that verse, it basically shows us that we've had grace from the beginning. And though we, may, make a mistake or whatever the case may be, make a trespass, whether it be in ignorance or due to weakness, there's not, always the case of a total loss. And again, I think we kind of went to Voltron mode of everyone, the Most High used kind of all of us to bring out clarification on that scripture. So definitely go back and check that out on part 1. But the overall matter, we're showing and establishing that works are playing a part in something that's going on. And this right here is even the judgment towards the latter times. So we went over to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 6, verse 1 through 4. And the key verses are on the screen. And I'm gonna just drop down to 3. It says, for power is given you from Yahweh, and sovereignty from the highest, who shall try your works and search out your counsels. So my question is, why doesn't it say, and will try your faith? It doesn't say that he's trying your faith, he's trying your works. There's a reason why it's saying this, but that would be the question that, I would ask, or I was asking. And it's just so contrary to what we've been taught. Let's see. Just moving along, just because this is just a review. So we went to Ecclesiasticus. This is in the Apocrypha text. Sirach, also called. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 15 and 1, and then we went to 13 through 20. The key verses is on the screen. Verse 19 says, and his eyes are upon them that fear him, and he knoweth every work of man. And the reason why that's so important is that it shows that everything we're doing is being recorded. Everything we're doing is being watched. Like, you can't hide from the Most High. He's seeing the intents of your heart, and he's seeing the actions that you put forth and produce. So his eyes are upon them that respect him, reverence him, and he knoweth every work of man. It's like a father to a son, or a father to a daughter. And verse 20, he have commanded no man to do wickedly, neither have he given any man license to sin. That's a huge verse, especially to Christianity, because we can talk about some of the big name pastors who tell us that we don't even have to keep the 10 commandments. So it says that the Most High has not given any man a license to sin. That's a huge contradiction to the text. Now, of course, a lot of the Christian churches won't read from this scripture or this book. But when you see these scriptures in totality, now we have to judge, are we making a decision based on what we want the quote unquote doctrine to be, or are we being fair to how all of these things are cooperating with each other? And that's how I like to try to build a class, just so we can see, even if this is something that most people in the Christian community shun, you can see that it's saying the same thing that is in our traditional text. So we went on into how will you be judged? And just to keep it simple, all of the key verses are on the screen. This is still Ecclesiasticus, but chapter 16. And verse 12 says, as his mercy is great, so is his correction also. He judges a man according to his works. So again, it's not saying that we're judged according to our faith or grace. It's saying we're judged according to our works. it says the sinner shall not escape with his spoils, meaning when we see people out here sinning, and we're like, man, like it just seemed like everything's going well for them. I know he wicked, but he got the nice house and the house with the pool table in it and the movie theater in the back. That's a shot at my sister Zahaba. She want everything. But you see these wicked people, look, ball till you fall, man. That's her. But no. In all but in all seriousness, that's them. And that's what we were talking about, her being in California. And was like, yeah, those people out there sometimes can get into some serious wickedness, and they're in all types of sins, but you don't necessarily see, any type of punishment or reward or, payback for their sins. But it says the sinner shall not escape with the spoils, and the patience of the godly shall not be frustrated. Make way for every work of mercy, for every man shall find according to his works, meaning that the way that you find that mercy is through your works, and the intent, of your heart. The Most High is gonna be merciful because he's been merciful from the beginning. Even with Adam, with his transgression, he could have just ended Adam, but he actually just made a way for Adam to still live, still progress, to give mankind a way back, not to go into a diatribe about it, but just, we know that he went from all of man to a specific group of people. And then he made a way through us, that those who attach themselves to us, we all can be reconciled back to the Father.
So does that scripture that you just poured out, does that kind of go, verse 14, does that kind of go back to, I think we were having like a conversation before about, is there like different levels of mercy that's divvied out to every individual? Because of course you can of course we're not supposed to focus on the right or to the left, stay on the straight and narrow path, really mind your business, unless of course you are pushed to speak the truth to somebody. But verse 14, make way for every work of mercy, for every man shall find according to his works. Does this go back to the conversation that we were having before of like everybody is given like a different level of mercy? Because I remember saying the statement to you before, I look at somebody else's life and what they're doing or what they're saying, but I'm like, if that came out of my mouth, I know the Most High would probably take me out of it. Or if I did that, I know the Most High would take me out of here. So is that scripture kind of depicting that we are all kind of given a different level of mercy?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And yeah, I would say yes, because the Most High said that he would have mercy upon whom he would have mercy. So that what happens to a person based on what they said or what they've done, that is up to the Father, what he does, But if they have breath in them, they still have time to repent if they're doing wickedly. But as far as what becomes of that man or woman, that's up to the Most High. So yeah, I would put that in your category of feeling like, this person may have said this, but if I said this, I'm not, but that also goes to the respect and fear that you have for the Most High. You just have a high reverence for him that it's like, I don't even want to test the Most High. That makes sense? So continuing with the how would you be judged theme, we just jumped over still Sirach. But go ahead. Go ahead, Nariah.
All praise. Just real quick, I just wanted to land back real quick on what you just said. And it goes back to comments that I've made before regarding just everyone having a different measure of faith. So you saying certain things that you wouldn't do because you have that reverence and fear of the Most High. That fear is because you have faith. And it might sound strange, but this is what it is. We walk by faith, not by sight. So you having faith that the Most High, the Almighty One, can heal you right here where you stand based off of you doing a certain thing that you see somebody else doing, even though that is like a reverence and a fear, that's still your faith in the Most High is still doing the righteousness that he said he'd do. I just want to add that.
Con. Anybody else?
I just would add, I was trying to call it from memory, but Sis Joyce was asking, you know, how we get punished and the other person prosper, much known, much required.
That and Hebrews, he chastised whom he loved. So sometimes the person is not getting any punishment because the Most High's hand is not on them. He's not molding and shaping them to do his work, his good will, which I think we end up touching on that at part 2 of this class, but we already hear the Most High has already put in the people he wants to do his will, and those people that he wants to do his will, we will be the ones that he's molding and shaping, that vine or that plant that he's, you know, molding and shaping. If we go to Isaiah 5, you just write that down, Isaiah 5, he talks about cultivating a plant in Isaiah chapter 5. In Isaiah chapter 5, he's talking about cultivating his people, but then all 12 tribes, he had some went astray, which we know the Northern Kingdom was first to go astray, and they became wild, right? But even within all 12 tribes of him molding and planting, it goes down to the individuals. So now he is molding and shaping me. I had to continue to go through things to be here, and I will continue as we push forward. Same thing with you. So that's to what Marah is saying, how he chastised those who he loved. So going on, that same book, we went to chapter 35, and the key verses on the screen about the judgment. How, because I want y'all to see, like, not the, well, it says right here, love me, keep my commandments, which is amazing scripture. But just, I wanted to just kind of look at it from a different lens, like, well, what is the word saying we're going to be judged by? Like, what are we getting our grade on? What are we getting our test on? You know, and when I start seeing all these scriptures come together, it says here, verse 19, till he have rendered to every man according to his deeds, not according to his faith, not according to grace, not according to mercy. It says, till he have rendered every man according to his deeds, and to the works of men according to their devices, till he have judged the cause of his people and made them to rejoice in his mercy. Then we get the mercy. That makes sense?
Well,
go ahead, Marah.
Just to help reach the days, what do you say to those who say, well, I'm a good person, I give to charity, I never stole, so my deeds are good deeds? How do we help them?
Khan, that's a good question. So we know that when it's talking about doing deeds and doing works, these deeds and works are according to the commandments that the Father has given us. So those commandments entail everything that he's given us, all the way from, you know, from what we understand, really the whole book, but that Moses gave from Genesis to Deuteronomy, right? And how did I want to say it? Ask it again, Marah. Ask me again.
So how do we help the people who say, you know, I don't smoke, I don't fornicate, and I give 10% of my income to charity, I'm doing good works, so I'm going to be saved? How do we help those people?
Okay, yeah. So again, it goes back to every word of the Most High is a commandment. Those are the things that we're supposed to keep. So when now we have two things, you have to have faith in the commandments. And as we'll see in part 2, your faith is going to be shown by your deeds or by your works. So if you believe in the words that the Most High has given us, you're going to keep his commandments. That's one. Then he introduced I've given away the second part of the class, but he introduced a propitiation for us because of the sins that the nation has committed. So now the second part to that is we have to believe in the Messiah, his son. When you put those two things together, you should be walking as the Messiah walketh. So the way you determine what's good and what's not good, because you could say, I do good deeds by society's standards.
That's what I was trying to.
But you have to do the good deeds according to the Most High standards. And that's why I was mentioning the commandments that was given us. So how do you determine what's good? There is none good but one, which is the Father. So we have to do what our Father wants us to do. We can't make up our own rules. Go ahead. Oh yeah, thank you.
Did he tell me go ahead?
Condro.
Okay, the water. Yeah, just wanted to land me back on what y'all was just saying. Yeah, I always say that when that come up, the question you asked, Marah, thinking of Romans 5:7, for scarcely a man, for a righteous man will one die, yet peradventure for a good man, some will even dare to die. So for one, I always say we use good loosely. You know, we quick to label people good, or that's a good dude. But like I said, when you recall Christ, he wouldn't even allow himself to be referred to as good. He said only my Father is good. But in his illustration, his parable of the Good Samaritan versus the righteous Israelite brothers and how they treated, you know, their fellow man in need. You know, if it wasn't, you know, even though they was violating the letter of the law and they supposed to help their brother, you know, that Good Samaritan, you know, not only did he look out for his neighbor, but he went beyond. He went beyond that, you know. So it just goes to show that a good person is even better than a righteous person. So if they ain't even doing the laws, then how in the world are they gonna categorize themselves as good? You know, so just you know, just that's another angle, and then that's another level of thinking. Of course, somebody that don't understand the laws you might have to break that down to them, but just the simple fact that a good person is better than a righteous person, you know, so that wouldn't fly.
Just to slightly land you back on what he just said, I find myself now, even if I'm talking to like Nariah or somebody, I'll find myself catching myself. And sometimes I'll say, oh, well, she just got a good spirit, or she got a good heart, but then I'm like, no, I ain't gonna say that, because if I'm going off of the Most High and his law, statutes, and commandments, like, no, it ain't a good spirit or a good heart. When I look at it that way, they're ultimately like wicked, because they're not following the law, statutes, and commandments, so they don't know who the Most High. Like people say that, no, I love God. No. Your heart is far from him. You don't do his work. So I found myself, just to land back off of what he said, as far as like using that word loosely, I have to check myself sometimes, and I'll say, no, I'm not even gonna say good spirit or good heart, or you know, they got a good spirit. I'm just not gonna say it. But now you have that parameter, you have that thing to go off of. I have a radar, I have this law or this way of life to compare anything else to. And if you're not following the laws that you commandments, I can't say that.
Con. So also to this specific question and topic as well, let's go to Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21 and verse 36. Shema. So Luke chapter 31, verse 36. Can one of y'all read it for me?
Luke chapter 21, verse 36.
Mm-hmm.
Watch ye therefore and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man.
So he says, watch therefore and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape these things that shall come to pass. But one point is, why do you have to pray always that you are gonna escape something that's to come, if once saved, always saved, and you're saved by saying, you know, a quote unquote sinner's prayer, right? But let's go over to 1 Peter chapter 4. Let's go over to 1 Peter chapter 4. He says, pray always. And then we're talking about, you know, well, I do good here and I do this here and I do that. Now we established that, you know, the good is determined by the Father. 1 Peter chapter 4, I'll read this one, starting at verse 12. Shema. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you. Now, I didn't even have this in the class, but we just talked about trial by fire, right? That was a whole subheading. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you. But rejoice inasmuch you are partakers of Hamashiach's sufferings. So there's another answer to, well, why does this happen to me and not to that person? That when his glory shall be revealed, you may be glad also with exceeding joy. If you be reproached for the name of Hamashiach, happy are ye, for the spirit of glory and of Elohim resteth upon you. And their part he is evil spoken of, but on your part he is glorified. But let none of you suffer as a murderer or as a thief or as an evildoer or as a busybody in other men's matters. You even said that. Mind your business. Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, quote unquote, I know that text right there is Christianized, but yet as any man suffer, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify the Most High on his behalf, on this behalf. For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of Elohim, Yasha Allah. So judgment is going to start with us, and that's what we're talking about right now. How are we being judged? And if it first began at us, what shall the end be of them that obeyed not? That obeyed not. So somebody must be supposed to obey something, not the basar of Elohim. Because how can you obey? What is the basar or the gospel of Elohim if we're just saved by faith, grace alone? Right? And it says, if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear? So if a person is saying, well, I do good deeds and I donate 10% here and I do this, well, it says the righteous scarcely be saved. That gives more credence to Luke chapter 21, verse 36. Pray always, meaning, and then we know there's another precept that says, he that endures unto the end shall be saved. So that's why we're continuing to push forth. And I think this conversation will come up in the second part, because I'm going to talk about it some more.
This is a 2-for-1. That's why I love digging in the word all day long. This is a 2-for-1. That 1 Peter 4 and 17, he says that judgment must begin at the house of Yah.
Mm-hmm.
That's setting the Israelites above others.
Why
not? Why isn't judgment started at the house of Rome,
mm-hmm.
the house of Russia? Even in their text that they say they believe in, your text is making a distinction between Israel and the other nation.
Absolutely.
Now the Christians want to Christianize this and say, yeah, the house of God is the church. La'ah.
Right.
The house of Yah is the children of Israel in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
So right in their text, you see there's a difference between the Israelites and the other people.
Absolutely.
It's like you said, you knew better.
Right.
I'm gonna get y'all first, because you knew better.
Right.
Like, just to make it plain, for those of us that are parents, when your child has a friend that comes over, you've already established the rules from day one. So when you come in the house, might be you take your shoes off, you hit that door. Other children jumping on the couch. You might come in and say, hey, you don't jump on the couch here. You're gonna be harder on your child. Like, you don't let them come jump on your couch. You don't let them tear up your room. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta get them first. This makes me also think of the talents being on the parable of the talents, where one was given 5, or one was given 10, one was given 5, and one was given 1. They had to produce something. They had to show forth works.
Like growing fruit, letting it, making something multiply.
First commandment.
Right. Right. That's good, Chef. Thank you.
Gerald got his hand up.
Go ahead, Gerald.
The water. So that scripture you referred to, I forgot the actual verse when you said, scarcely will the righteous be saved. How much more so with the wicked or the unrighteous? And I was thinking about that from 2 angles. Correct me if I'm wrong, like kind of steer me to the right one. But scarcely will the righteous be saved, meaning that some of us, according to Revelations 14, possibly are going to die faithful and our works will be remembered. But some of us will live, and when Christ come back, and we will be saved out of this captivity, so to speak, and go back into the land. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, I would guess, would be just because some are practicing righteous acts by, following the commandments and so forth. You think about Amos 5, how it talks about how we can endure, bear light obstacles in these last days, endure lion light obstacles, but then get all the way to the end and rest our hand in the building up against the wall, and then the serpent get us. So pretty much we put our guard down just because we had a life of practicing righteous acts. You put your guard down and you fall off towards the end, you can end up losing your life by means of just not being faithful to the end. So which one of them would you kind of say that scripture is kind of alluding to? Because I got a thought.
I think that both statements you made is on point. And also too, there's of us who practice the Torah, but they don't believe in the Messiah. So according to the law of them, keeping the feast or whatever the case may be, that's a righteous thing to do. But the righteous would scarcely be saved because you missing the other part of the agreement that we have to come back to the Father. So I believe what you said about some of us will enter into, the quote unquote the afterlife, or we'll pass from the physical earth, and some of us will be alive when it's time to, receive the salvation, be back in the land, second Exodus, and some people will be alive at the return of the Messiah. That's one way. And then the second way that you stated. So I think when you put all that together, I think it's a combination of those things, based on scriptures that we've covered before, because we've been intimate. But I don't know if Marah had like something.
I was just thinking, because we're reading this from the so-called New Testament, and they're trying to express Hebraic thought, but to sum up those passages, like the righteous scarcely make it, if it's authentic, the elders letting us know, even though, because to be righteous means to keep the law.
Right.
So the elders trying to tell us, even though we're keeping the law, don't get cocky.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get arrogant because you're keeping the feast and you're following the Torah. We have to like Paul said in another instance, work out your salvation with fear and trembling.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you hear me say now, I believe we're in an era where we should be constantly asking for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
We at the job have a thought about the heathens.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes like now we see heathen to drop dead. And you know, I know we all don't have thoughts, but you know, we know them heathens don't have no understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not righteous of us to ask how to drop that heathen.
Yeah.
So the elders just want us to know, even though you're righteous or you think that you're keeping the law in your own eyes, still be on guard to the very end. Because all of us here, we've been keeping the law and repenting, but we might see some things next week. When you see somebody just fall out in front of you, are you going to blaspheme?
Right.
Or when you're, for the mothers, you know, you're strong now because you got food in the refrigerator and your child has formula. But when your child is, you can see your baby's ribs.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go just give up and go and get in that line and get those GMO foods or whatnot? So I just think in a nutshell, the elders telling us to be on guard, work out your salvation. That's all.
And to add to that, that's going into something that it came at the last minute or the last hour that I was like, man, that'll be good to put in the class, but you know, I couldn't get it together. But our nation of people was boasting in the law. That was really the issue. And all of this is the second part of this class, but they were boasting in the law and they couldn't receive the son. They couldn't, they were focused that we're the sons, children of Abraham. The Father has done miracles and works and been with him and his people from the beginning. And we have the commandments and the law, and that's all, that was it. So then they started taking advantage of that. And that's what we're seeing if we go throughout all of like Romans and all of that. And now that is, even for me, because this just came to me last night, and that gives more credence to why Peter just said what he said, and then how you expounded that the elders trying to say, don't boast in righteous acts. But then the Christians will take that and say, that's why nobody has to keep anything. But now you just went too far to the other side.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, because what I was saying, facts. Because what I was saying is, Salakia, what, and that y'all went right into the thought that I had, and that's why I asked it. I posed it like that because the extreme, like I said, the Christian view, like you just said, is, well, it's about faith. It's not about works. That's why we don't have to keep the law. That's why we don't have to keep the commandments, you know. But if it's saying for the righteous will scarcely be saved, and these are people that's keeping the law, and they not even all guaranteed, you know, depending on how that goes, you know, whether they're boasting or how they're applying Christ or whatever the case may be, then how much more so will a person be judged and be condemned if they're not keeping righteous acts, but they're saying, hey, it's about my conduct, it's about my faith, you know? So it goes to show you can't believe without practicing the righteous acts of the laws and the commands. You can't rely on just faith. You know, you have to do it. And then not only by doing the Most High's laws and commands, you also got to endure to the end, not give up, not boast in it, but make sure you die daily to your sins and so forth. So yeah, that's good stuff. Appreciate it.
It's I just love this. I just love this community because me and Gina just was talking about this morning. She has a new study book that came in the mail, and I told her, I said I skimmed one chapter, and I said, you know, just be careful because it has Christian theology in it. So this morning when she woke up, she started going through it. She was asking me questions, and I said, you know, they contradict themselves in their own theology. You're saying that you can't work for salvation, but you go to seminary school to get a degree. So you didn't have, if it was all about faith, you need to go to school to get faith in Christ. And then why are you keeping Easter? Why are you keeping all these customs if you got faith? Why is your main day of worship on SUN Day? Why are you getting baptized? Because I still see the Christian church doing baptism.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's a good thing, but why are you doing it if you're saved by grace through faith? And that's how you know. I'm asking the Father, all of you, that's why I want brothers who are mature in His word and righteous. it has to be a spiritual stupor on them, not to see you're contradicting yourself in your own sentence.
Right.
So, you know, we can't take credit for this. It's a spiritual awakening I was doing with us.
I mean, that was very powerful what you said. I hope people really caught, you know, what you were bringing out. But even in their own doctrines, they still practice works, even if they don't recognize or want to admit that they are. That's what he was pointing out. So you're contradicting yourself, and you don't even recognize it. That was very powerful. If there's nothing else, we're just gonna keep sliding through to try to get to the current stuff. But I think it's going well so far. All the comments have really brought things to life. Think turn that one. So just continuing about the judgment, still Ecclesiasticus, it was chapter 39, and the key verse was on the screen, and it says, the works of all flesh are before him, the Most High, and nothing can be hid from his eyes. He seeth from everlasting to everlasting, and there is nothing wonderful before him. Nothing surprises him. Nothing is miraculous to him like it may be to us. But this is just a second witness to the fact that the Most High sees all of our doings and our works. And specifically, if you're working after the flesh, then you're in lawlessness or sin. But just your physical works in the flesh, he sees those too, righteous and unrighteous. So again, with that same theme, Ezra, one of our prophets of old, he was pretty much saying that same message in 2nd Ezra chapter 7, verse 14. He says, if then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive the things laid up for them. So if then they that live have no works, labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive the reward. And that's kind of a theme that we've been seeing throughout the other precepts. I'll skip that one. And then I talked about the Messiah and his return and his coming. And I went all the way to the book of Enoch. The key verse is just on the screen, is Enoch chapter 45. Again, this is just a review for somebody who maybe just have popped on. So this part, you know, we're kind of not expounding as much as we normally would. But it says, verse 3, chapter Enoch, verse 45. On that day, mine elect one, and I asked the question, who's the elect one? And we all said that's Yahweh Shai. And then I asked the other question, who's the elect ones, plural? Yasharallah. And it says, on that day, mine elect one will sit on the throne of glory. The Most High is gonna place the Son, or allow the Son to be on the throne of glory, and he will try their works, and their places of rest will be innumerable. So again, my vision was to look towards the end to see, you know, because it could have easily said, you know, on that day, mine elect one will sit upon the throne of glory and have grace and mercy upon all those who believe. It could have easily said that, but the text is saying he's going to try their works. And Enoch was before all of the other writings that I just showed y'all before. And they've all said the same thing, that your works will be tried by fire. All the way into the new so-called Testament, the message has been the same. Again, this is the return of the Messiah, 2nd Ezra chapter 13. That whole chapter is a vision and a explanation of the vision about the return of the Messiah. And verse 37 says, and this my son, Yahweh Shai, shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations, which makes sense because we've seen them start to create abominable things that we couldn't even imagine, right?
Days of Noah.
Right, days of Noah. So it says that the Son is going to rebuke those wicked inventions, which for their wicked life are fallen into tempest, and shall lay before them their evil thoughts. So he's going to have their thoughts be recalled to their mind, and torment wherewith they shall begin to be tormented, which are like unto a flame, and he shall destroy them without putting a hand on them, basically without labor, by the law, which is like unto a fire. Your works tried by fire. The Messiah is coming. My mindset is like this. If the Messiah is coming and it says he's gonna destroy the wicked inventions of the nations by the law, now you have to keep in context that the judgment comes to us first. So if he's judging them by the law, what is he judging us by? The law. So I'm thinking when you have a foundation like this, it's like it's no way you can tell me that this law is unimportant, or I don't have to keep it, or there's no works that I have to do, because when the Messiah comes, he's looking to judge you by the law, by your works. That's the picture that I was trying to paint as we've been going through.
Well,
go ahead.
When you got out of school, a lot of times, mama told you had chores, right? So when you get home, you didn't do the chores. What she did? She judged you by your works. This is not hard.
It's really not.
I wish you would. Not to clean your room, made up your bed, or back to the floor, whatever that thing was.
Then take the chicken out the freezer.
Yeah. So how much more would a righteous father do?
And I think the thing that I keep hearing, even from like other people that I speak to, when you talk about works, people are saying like, well, what did the Messiah come for? What did he come for? If you got to do all the stuff, like what did he come for? And you get that all the time.
And then we have the answer for that too. The scriptures is for that.
That's why I think the Most High for that front line, because there's no guesswork. I can produce witnesses, and you can't. You're just giving me critical theology, and you have no witnesses. All these witnesses, and this is just a review, but none of these witnesses is saying grace is going to save you, faith is going to save you. None of these witnesses are saying that, and that's the one thing they have to concede. Whether you like my delivery or not, I'm giving you something you can read, and I'm not breaking it down. I'm reading it to you, and they can't do that for us.
And that's amazing. And then I got you, Chef. But just to quickly, because I think we're gonna get into it later. Just quickly, just a quick answer to that question, or one precept, is 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 18, and it says, "And all things are of the Most High, who have reconciled us," Yasha Allah is the context, "to himself by Yahweh Shah Mashiach, and have given to us the ministry of reconciliation." So this is what he came for, to restore the people back to the Father, to repair the breach, the Pesach, to the Most High. And we can, give more witnesses to that. But you see, so even when they ask that, we can still answer that question. Okay.
What you just said made me just think about our ancestors entered into a covenant, a blood covenant, because we should be wiped out. Because the fruit, we were the seed of the ancestors. So if the ancestors agreed to something, essentially we agreed to. Gerald was about to speak, but what you said just made me think about it. He came to prevent us, to shed his blood to cover us, so we can be allowed that. Go ahead, Gerald. In the right.
the water. This is in line with Chef said earlier about the parent giving you that those chores, and if you don't come home and do it, you get judged. Like typically, when you ask most people that don't believe that the laws is necessary, well, what are we required? What are we going to be judged by? And they'll say, well, whatever the Most High says, whatever the Creator says, whatever they say that. But what did he say though? When we go into scriptures, that's very general, because if it's not about the laws and the commandments, what is he saying? Because we know directly what the scriptures say that he told Israel to do. This is the standards. He wrote upon the tablets, and he also gave them more that Moses told them. Not the laws of Moses. There was the Most High's laws. He just gave them more, but he specifically wrote 10 on the tablets himself. So when you keep it general, a lot of religions want to generalize it. And if you say, well, what did the Most High specifically tell us? They want to sidestep the laws because they don't want to do the laws. So they want to sidestep it, and that's the problem, like the Bible ain't ambiguous like that. Like it's very simple. Like he's telling us as our Heavenly Father, as that parent, this is what you expected to do. And if you don't do it, there's life and death. There's blessings and curses, associated with it. So I just wanted to add that in because when you do that, when you sidestep it, then you start getting all these doctrines of man. They start telling you what he's saying, what's expected. No, he ain't leave it ambiguous. He told us directly already.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just keeping on with that theme, Sister Z, if you could just read what's on the screen. Again, it's right in line with everything we've already said, but go ahead, Nariah.
Could you read that 2 Corinthians precept that you brought out a few minutes ago?
2 Corinthians chapter 5.
I think that's it. Could you read that again?
Yeah. It says, and all things are of Elohim, who have reconciled us to himself by Yahushua, and have given to us the ministry of reconciliation.
What does it mean to minister, y'all?
Work.
Serve.
Work. Serve.
And what does the servant do? Work.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's a perfect example of it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Like for me, when the Most High said it's like it's time to bring out a class or bring out something, and I actually feel something like, okay, I see something, I want to talk about this. And then it's like all these scriptures just start piling on top of each other. And it just takes, a long time. It takes, studying and reading and prayer and fasting just to have these things revealed. But just like how he just brought that out again, we just read it, and you could just take every little word and see this uniformed message. And we're just going to see it again based on what's on the screen here. So this is 2nd Ezra chapter 9, one of our favorite chapters, and 7 through 12 for the full context, but we just doing 7 and 8, I believe.
Verse 7, and everyone that shall be saved.
So everybody that's going to be saved, they said that the saving is through a prayer and believing. And go ahead.
And shall be able to escape by his works.
By your works, you're going to be able to escape what's to come by your works.
And by faith.
And it's a package deal.
Whereby ye have believed, shall be preserved from the said peril, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning.
That verse is so powerful. Verse 8, shall be preserved from the said perils and see my salvation in my land, shall see Yahushua and within my borders. And for I have sanctified them. That's possessive. The salvation is designed for one group of people, which is who he's sanctified for himself or made righteous. See, he just said it. I sanctified. Sanctification is to be made righteous, correct? Is that the correct definition, Marah? So that means that the Father, again, this is a deeper thing, but the Father has sanctified a nation of people.
No, I'm sorry. Say it again.
Is sanctification to be made righteous? No. Okay, wait.
Sanctified is set apart.
So, okay, so it's the same word for set apart. Okay, I thought it was to be made righteous. So he just pretty much set us apart from the beginning, which we know that just like that, I chose one grape from the cluster. So he chose one grape out of the cluster. He chose Yasha Allah from the beginning. All praises for that.
Salakia, but the world would say, the world and church would say that means to be cleansed, because you know they want to make it about sin from Adam, not about the laws that was given that we agreed to. So they'll say salvation means to be sanctified, means to be cleansed. So they miss.
And I think that's why I think that's why I had that idea in my mind that sanctification meant righteous.
We don't heard it so many times.
Yeah.
In the church.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
beat us down with that.
Yeah. That's why I said, I mean, I'm not the master teacher. That's why, you know, I lean on all of you guys to help expound on certain things. And so I don't even know if I might have put this in the wrong place or not. I think this is because this is a new slide, and I think I put it here for a reason, but this is a new slide. So kind of technically a part of part 2. And Marah had just brought this out maybe like 10 to 15 minutes ago. This is actually getting towards the beginning of the new class, but it says in the New Testament, so-called Philippians chapter 2, verse 12 and 13, it says, wherefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, talking to the Israelites in Philippi, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Why didn't he say just have faith?
Trust in your faith.
Just trust in your faith and wait until the Messiah comes and you're good. He didn't say that.
This is Paul, it's your champion.
Right. And then he goes on to say, for it is God or Yahweh which work in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. So for you to do good, it's the Most High Spirit that's, I don't want to say forcing, but it's willing you. This is what I've been saying this every week, that we believe in. To us, Joyce has made the decision to come here. I'm saying the Father put it in you to do it. And this is a clear working, a reading, a writing that's showing that the Father is working in us. The Father has us all here together to see this truth.
So the opposite of this, when we fall into sin, we have overcome Yah to commit our sins. That's what this verse is saying. It says Yah is working in us so we can do his will.
So if you're not doing his will, what's working in you?
Spirit of Hasatan, you have willingly gave your vessel over and just ignored the power that Yah has in you. You have to do more work to do evil than you have to do good. Because
you even know when you do evil or certain things, even the most wickedest person knows certain things, even if they don't admit it, inside, it's like, dang, I know. Like, right.
You selling dope. I ain't gonna sell to mother of the children. Gotta be, tears gotta be gone. Right. We'll make up something.
We
So-
justify our evil.
Right.
That's what we've been doing.
And man, so when you do that, now you're walking after the flesh.
Before you like to death.
But
Wha-
that, what he said is powerful.
That's
Mhm.
Like you overcame God,
Mhm.
the Most High, who is
The spirit.
moving.
Mhm.
That's just not an analogy in my head. He is moving.
Right.
He's willfully
So you go
moving
home.
you.
Don't say
He
that.
is, he's working in you.
Right.
So you pretty much like, nah, you don't overpower him to allow your flesh
You breathe that
to
spirit.
lead you.
Right.
Right.
Satan or Shaitan or
This is how.
And that's why it says walk after the spirit. Who's the spirit? Walk after the Most High and not after the flesh. But see, now what they've done is when it says walk after the spirit, see, you ain't got to do nothing. What? It doesn't say you don't have to do anything because you're walking after the spirit.
Even walking is work.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put even that in here, and that's just all praise to the Most High. But if somebody want to find it just for the playback or for for the person, but there's a scripture that says walk as he walked, correct? The Messiah.
Romans 7. Sound like Romans 7.
Let me see if I can.
Go to Romans 8.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gerald.
Go ahead, Gerald, too. Yeah. John.
Yeah. Yeah, you brought it up because Yah is the spirit. I was going to refer back to your and that's why the text tells us the waging between spirit and flesh. We have to walk by the spirit, meaning in essence walk by Yah. And it's funny because on a religious position, on a church standpoint, the way they view it, think about how they go worship, but then during the week they right back to their way. Saturday night before they go worship, they at they clubbing, they doing all of that stuff, and then they right back to worship. And the spirit and the flesh can't work together. The spirit and the flesh don't work together. Like it's either you overpower, you choosing one or the other. So hence that's why when we think of repenting, if we do fall back to our flesh, because again, we were drawn to the Father at one point. This is the other side for those who have fell to their flesh and went into a practice of something, that they repented from, or whatever the case may be. When you repent, you're returning back to the Father. You're returning back to the Spirit because he didn't leave you. You left him because he drew you from the jump. He obviously saw something in you, in your heart that he wanted for what you can be, so it's like, for the people that is in a state probably where they feel like, well, I've sinned, I failed, I'm overwhelmed by it, I don't think I could return back to the Father, he will never forgive me. No, when you repent, you return back to the Father, you allow the Spirit to dwell in you, to walk with you again. And as long as you stay on that focus, that path, then you can be restored. But they can't both be in the same temple. They can't both be in conflict with each other.
Con, 1 second. Chef, go ahead and read that precept you gave me, and then I got another one.
I'm going to read Romans 8:1 first. There is therefore no condemnation to them which are in Mashiach, our shop, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Romans 8:1 and Deuteronomy 13:4. Ye shall walk after Adonai Elohim and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice. He shall serve him and cleave unto him. And the riots stated that they worship Sun Monday through Saturday and then try to serve the Most High on Sunday. So they ultimately worship his every day of the week.
Yeah. 1 second. Araya was just saying the screen was sharing from the presentation mode.
The one you was alluding to is 1 John 2:6, and it's already
Yeah.
highlighted.
Yeah, go ahead.
1 John chapter 2, verse 6. He that saith he abideth in him himself also to walk, even as he, Hamashiach Christ, walked.
Just like that. 1:3.
Again, all these verses are calling for action, not just believing that he's the son. It's calling for action. Walk, do something.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mara. So yeah, that was technically the start of part 2, the end of part 1. I think I just put it there because I just felt that it felt right. Someone just mentioned too, not too long ago, maybe it was Mara, life or death. Someone just mentioned Gerald. Yeah, someone just said that. You? Okay. Yeah.
I said it.
Yeah, you see how like all this stuff just comes together and flows. Like, y'all didn't know what I had in here. Not this right here is going to lead into the Sharash Ibar. This is the Septuagint. So Marah, well, actually, you don't have to get it because it's right down the screen. But the Septuagint, if you want to double check me, you can. But this is Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 16.
It's matching up with mine.
Just go ahead and read it for me.
Oh, sorry. This is Proverbs chapter 10, verse 16 out of the Septuagint. It says, the works of the righteous produce life, but the fruits of the ungodly produce sin.
The works of the righteous produce life, but the fruits of the ungodly produce sins. So as we go into the Sharash Ibar, I have it on the screen here. This is our Hebrew roots. This is another, I think the past 3 weeks, these are words that you've at least heard. If you've been following us for a while, you've probably heard it, a few times. So I know this is right up Marah's, right up the most Marah's alley. Make sure. So if y'all can take a couple minutes to come up with this word, and I'll just give y'all time to go ahead and think of what it means. I'll just give you a little bit more time than I usually do. So go ahead and do the what's the Hebrew word for the characters? What's the English word? And what do you think it means? And then we'll go.
To the Most High. Daddy Luke just sent me this beat like 40 minutes ago. Here we are. New moon of the first biblical month. And said 70 others, blow the trumpets. Messiah's coming, who gonna stop him? Final judgment. Waiting thousands of years, it's finally near. Exodus, the wings of the cherubim drying our tears. We the hidden ones. Hockey, how long we been in dark? Disregarded until they see us coming. No shit to Tarshish. 2 witnesses, I was gonna finish prophets. 3.5 years, open the scroll and continue. Put this mystery in your heart, let no one deceive you. Chapter 20, verse 35. The wilderness, we got this knowledge at the perfect time. If it ain't law, it's testimony, it ain't the light. It's the lies. Jeremiah, in our bones is the burning fire. As the doves to their windows, did you learn to fly? My sisters is Exodus. My brothers, Nehemiah, straight out of Babylon. This is Ezra's. Hey, do you want to wear the crown? The kingdom's inside right now. What are you looking for? Have faith. We came a long way. We can't turn back now. No, with this crown. Yasharala, don't trust the system. We got to fuck the heart and judge more righteous. Show more mercy to vessels who were undeserving. It rains on the proud and the humble servant. We shine like the temple during Solomon's reign, walking in obedience. That's the ultimate way. And they helps while you walk in the cane. Instead of spilling his blood, the offer the same. Knowledge increase, slaves becoming prophets and priests. We the lost tribe, we got the receipt. Nothing to boast of, we were captured, but still here throughout the diaspora. Far removed, couldn't tell you I tried if you asked us. This narrative is more total conversations. From the vows, relationships, it's not religion. Reconciliation and Yahshua, we got forgiveness. If it ain't Torah, it ain't our thing. Rock the thought. Trumpets and chariots, who should I be? Our power's right here. Kingdoms inside you, never forget it. Hey, stay focused, gotta see Zion. If you fall off, bounce back, keep striving, yeah. This crown on.
Yeah, y'all good? Y'all good out there? Like, you need more time or you good? Zahaba. So what's the word that y'all came up with? Okay, chata. Chata with the H on the end. Or you could have said kata, but yeah, chata is what we're starting to go towards. Yeah, that's what it is. Chata is the words for the characters. And what's the English word? Good guess. I think that's a good guess. What?
By breaking it down, I feel like the way I broke it down.
Don't
want that broke
yeah.
down yet. Okay, I think it's probably thin.
Anybody else? Change your answer. Good. Okay. Well, that is correct. The answer is sin. And I guess you can go ahead and go into your well, what's some of the meanings that this the first character could be? Yeah.
Separated, being separated.
Any
divided.
Mm-hmm.
I put outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 15 off.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody got anything else or no? What about the ta?
Marks, sign, a seal.
And then the and that's all correct. And the ha.
Either the Most High or the Spirit.
All right. So what did you have?
I put being separated by the mark of the Most High, or I put separated from the covenant of the Most High, or outside the seal of the Spirit, which that kind of could be flesh or something.
What you got, Olivia?
I should probably pick a positive connotation. So like separated by the covenant of the Most High. So like set apart. Like you have the covenant, so therefore set apart.
I got you. That's a good way to think.
And it's positive too, as a
Okay, she got deep on us.
So how will inquire or tithe separation from the covenant of the spirit?
And I pretty much knew he knew what it meant. And anybody else online had just wanted to say anything? Okay, good. Well, I mean, sisters, pretty much everybody was on point in the context of being sins. You know, I wrote separated from the covenant or mark of the Most High. And also too, I think when she was doing the introduction, I was just looking at the characters and I was thinking about the function of like the tent wall. It's almost like being encapsulated. Like when you put a wall around something, it's like for protection.
Right.
So it's almost like removing that protection, or it's taking you, like she said, outside. And that's why, you know, all praise to the Most High. Like you see how your mind start working now. Like you're thinking like first it's just like, well, it says water and chaos. What is that? But then you just start going and you seeing how you can apply this in an actual, like, well, what does a tent wall do? Why do we use it? What, you know, you just start adding layers to it. And you just, the way you broke it down is exactly like how I would have, like, or how I was doing it. So all praises to the Father for that. So yeah, you kind of like, say like inside this wall here with this mark, that's the kingdom. Being separated from that, set on the outside of that, is like the outer darkness. That's what I started seeing when I looked at it today. But basically, it's us being separated from the covenant, separated from the spirit, the mark of the seal of the Most High, the sealed ones, or the marked ones, just like how in Ezekiel chapter 9, you can write that down. Ezekiel chapter 9, the Most High had the Malachim or Malach go through and mark those who were righteous, and then those who weren't, you know, then you're up for destruction. Those that's right, exactly. Those who are keeping the law, the commandments, and those who are not. So that seal, if you're separated from that, now his hand and his promises is off of you. Go ahead, Chef.
Right off it, Isaiah 59:2. Nay, your iniquity separates between you and Elohim, and because of your sins, as he turned away his face from you, so as not to have mercy upon you.
So again, read it one more time. This is a perfect practicality where they're giving you the definition right in the passage. Go ahead.
Isaiah 59:2. Nay, your iniquity separates between you and Elohim, and because of your sins, as he turned away his face from you, so as not to have mercy upon you.
Your iniquity separate you from Elohim. That's so powerful. So let's read. Okay, so I put this in here twice. Let me go back. So let's read that scripture again that we started with, life and death. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 16. The works of the righteous produce life, but the fruits of the ungodly produce a separation from the covenant of the Most High. See how that is much more powerful? I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah. So does that make sense? So like I said, in English, I mean, it just says, oh, you know, it produces sins. But when you really put it into the full context, you know, the fruits of the ungodly means lawlessness, means they're not keeping the commandments, meaning they're sinning. But those ungodly deeds or works that they're doing is separating them from the Most High. So if it was to read the way, you know, if we read and naturally understood it from the Hebraic perspective, you know, it should have you take it much more seriously. Yeah. So we covered this already. So sticking with that same theme, Proverbs chapter 11 in the Septuagint is verses 18 and 20. And Shema, we have it, or if you. I can read it. So, I mean, it's pretty much all on the screen. It says, an ungodly man performs unrighteous works, which is going to cause them to be separated from the Most High. But the seed of the righteous is a reward of truth. A righteous son is born for life, but the persecution of the ungodly ends in death. Perverse ways are an abomination to Yahweh, but all they that are blameless in their ways are acceptable to him. So that's going right back with that theme, Marah. If you missed it, what I was saying was with the kata is that instead of just reading it in English, instead of reading it just in English saying that the fruits of the ungodly produce sins, if we saw it as the fruits of the ungodly produce a separation from the Most High or a separation from the covenant, it's much more powerful, right? And then it just goes right back into how perverse ways and ungodly ways are an abomination unto the Most High. That's what I was bringing out. Proverbs in the Septuagint, and it doesn't read like that at all in the KJV. It doesn't read like that in the KJV. That's why I chose the Septuagint for Proverbs 10 and Proverbs 11, because those key words that I've been using this whole time, they're like trigger words, like works, and another word is like a doer that we'll see. Yeah, let's see if we can get it in the KJV real quick. This one is 11 verse 18 through 20. Let's see what that says. Proverbs. So in the KJV, it's similar. It's just the wording I felt like was better. And I think 10 is worse than 11, but 11, since I'm already here. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 18 says, the wicked worketh a deceitful work, but to him that soweth righteousness shall be a sure reward. As righteousness tendeth to life, so he that pursueth evil pursueth it to his own death. And 20, they that are of a froward heart are an abomination to Yahweh, but such as are upright in their way are his delight. So it's kind of saying the same thing. It's just, like I said, the trigger word is works for what I'm bringing out. And in the Septuagint, it used that word specifically. And then Proverbs 10, was it Proverbs 10 and 16? Yeah. So Proverbs 10 and 16 says in the KJV, The labor of the righteous tendeth to life, the fruit of the wicked to sin. And I think it said something similar. Yeah, it says tended to life, and then here it says the works of the righteous. So again, those trigger words, instead of saying labor, it says the works produce life. And
Yeah, I won't say these are corrupt.
yeah, I wouldn't say it's corrupt. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's corrupt. It's just the wording of it that fits with pretty much all the
But
previous
even
texts.
Just that scripture here, even with the scripture you just brought out, this is Proverbs 10 and 16. And the English says the labor of the righteous, but we know labor is work.
Right.
Work of the righteous.
Right.
So even your own text, like you have to get rid of so much of the Bible when you go with that faith and grace doctrine. And then I was listening to some Christians and Israelites have a debate, of course, anyway. He kept talking about the fruit of the spirit. You don't have the fruit of the spirit. And then this is my antennas goes off. You don't understand the culture or the text because you're running with Paul, only one witness who gave you the fruits of the spirit, and he gave you 9 of them. But Paul's only one person. But let's just say Paul did write about the fruits of the spirit. Well, how do you get fruit?
You
You
gotta
gotta
do
You
something.
You gotta step back.
You gotta do something. Yeah.
They don't understand what they're reading.
Right.
Even Paul, your champion, is telling you live by the fruits of the spirit. Like Chef said, you gotta get fruit. You gotta prune. You gotta plant.
Feel the ground.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Get for me, Chef, John chapter 9 and 31. It's on the screen. So we've been talking about work, and I'm using we're using the English pagan language, but these words are like, oh yeah, go ahead.
To think about this, like, if you're saying this seems planet, you do all the work, water it, do all this stuff, and then you have faith that's you do all the work, then you have faith that it's going to produce.
I got some tomatoes coming in a couple of, you
How you get it?
because you did the work to.
Come on now, you ain't
That's so,
believe.
but that's
You ain't just believe.
that's good though. That she just brought that analogy. I hope people understood what she was saying.
You ain't just go outside and say, you know what, I'm gonna have tomatoes down there.
Right.
Come on,
You didn't just believe for tomatoes and they just appeared out of thin air, other than you just went to the store and bought them, or you door dashed them or something. But the way that you have to get those tomatoes to come to life, you're gonna believe that if I plant that seed, that it's gonna grow, and I have to take care of it and cultivate it. You have to work out that tomatoes salvation with fear and trembling, right?
This text is so easy.
Yeah, it makes so much sense when you establish that foundation. It makes so much sense because you're seeing, and I hope that people are seeing that this thing is flowing together. It's all saying the similar or same things, or things that cooperate with one another. So again, because we're using English and we're talking to Christians, I like to use these trigger words specifically, like works, even labor, and then do, because Marat, you have to do something. We got to do something, family. But I like that word, because when you have to, it's not, we can't just sit on your hands. So Chef, you don't mind reading that for me?
John 9:30. You do it. Now we know that Yah forgives my sinners. But if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth his will, him who giveth.
So again, we talked about this before, but we know that Psalms 5 is where he got this from, right? Where it says the Most High doesn't hear sinners.
say too, Ecclesiastes 12:13, 13 and 12.
And somebody, you could just, if you're online, if you want to double check, but I believe Psalms 5 is one, and then he said Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and 13 may be a second.
Here's the will of man.
I got that one too.
12 and 13 or 13 and 12. I'm transposing verse. I think those are two verses. He just paraphrasing that verse.
Yeah, Ecclesiastes 12 and 6. For the Most High hateth sinners, and will repay vengeance unto the ungodly, and keepeth them against the mighty day of their punishment. So that's.
Then what's 13? Whole duty of man?
No. That's it's something different. Who will pity a charmer? I'll go to Psalms. While he's going there, I'm sorry, y'all. Forgive me, Salakia. I'm saying that the Most High hateth sin. This is saying the Most High heareth not sinners. So even though they go together, we want to make sure we get the right one.
And the one I'm trying to work on is it says, "And those who do His will." At the end of that verse, that's not the thing.
What's that one? Prayers of the because that sounds like
the one about the prayer of an abomination is Psalm 19. Psalm 19 and Psalm 19, Psalm 18 and 19, or Psalm 19 and 18.
Let me see.
Like my wife transposing numbers.
Let me see. 1 second, y'all. You said prayers are about.
I'm sorry, Psalms 29. Go to Psalms 29, y'all.
Psalms 29. Not 20. No. What's it? Even your prayer shall be an abomination or something like that.
So
Yeah. Proverbs.
I said Psalm.
It's Proverbs 28. Yeah. And Proverbs 28, and I guess it's somewhere between 9 and 14.
It's not.
Yeah, he that turneth away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be an abomination. And that goes in line with John 9:31. Now we know that Yah heareth not sinners, but if any man be a worshiper of Yah and doeth his will. So to worship is to do his will. So to keep the feast is worship. To love your brother as yourself or your neighbor as yourself, that's worship. And doeth his will, him he heareth. So just to be clear, Proverbs 28 and 9 would be a precept for this that's on the screen.
And it's proof that they only had the law to read from. Because the letter of John wasn't in circulation.
Right.
So all our elders are pulling their doctrine from what you call the Old Testament.
Correct. And just keeping with the same theme, just turn over to James chapter 1. And back to when we started the class in part 1, we talked about how Martin Luther, you know, he was kind of trying to downgrade the book of James. If he could, he would just get rid of it altogether. And now we're starting to get into some of the things James is going to be saying and see why he would, you know, not want that to be in there, because it's a direct contradiction to his faith and grace only. So, you know, he would do all he could to downgrade James. And like I said, if he could, he would just get rid of it altogether. And this is from the Berean Standard Bible. I just like the way that it read compared to the other ones. And this is James 1:22-25. And it reads as, "Be doers of the word and not hearers only." So we're seeing a theme that don't just listen to, you know, the words that's written, given to us, or that a preacher may preach or a teacher may teach, but also be doers of the word. Otherwise, you are deceiving yourself. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror, and after observing himself, goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. Go ahead, Chef.
It looks like be ye doers of the house, not hearers only. Otherwise, you are. For anyone say hearer of the house and not a doer, it's like
You can take that into that perspective as well, because he is the word. That would go into walk as he walked, you know. But the word also is the commandments that was given to us. So it's we know he is the commandment. So it's both of those things are true. It's definitely powerful. It's definitely powerful. And continuing, same chapter, James 1, chapter verse 25. BSB, Berean Standard Bible, is but the one who looks intently into the perfect law of freedom, or yours might say liberty, and continues to do so, not being a forgetful hearer, but an effective doer. And then I put in parentheses up here, of the work, because I think KJV says of the work. And it says he will be blessed in what he does. He's expounding, he's explaining like how those people were to live and how we are to live. Look at the law of liberty, the law of freedom. The Most High has liberated you through the law so you can match what they're doing in the Shemayim on the Arataz, on the earth, and continue to do so. Don't be a forgetful hearer. Don't just hear it, read a couple passages, and then forget about it. Go ahead, Mara.
Check. I just want to expound because this is a verse that the Christian so-called theologians love to go to, and they start telling us, "Oh, we're not lawless, we're not antinomians, we have the law, we have the perfect law of liberty." And they think they're paraphrasing what Uncle Yaqub or James said, but James didn't give a definition of what the law of liberty was.
Mm-hmm.
So using textual criticism, what would an Israelite in this era believe to be the law of liberty?
The commandments. And go ahead.
And just think about, I wish I was James' big brother. So when your father gives you the law as an elder, the younger brother has to listen.
Well, no, sir.
No, that's not me.
So James,
I'm sorry. We're
not
James
sure.
being the younger brother.
Yeah, we think.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask you that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say James.
But either way, we not for them being brothers.
Right.
We can say it like that.
I was meaning to say with the house shall be the elder, James had this. So he's only gonna give the instruction you see.
Right. Either way. Yeah. Con. Him being Yahushua, period,
Right.
older or younger. He's given the instructions that he received. And what I'm noticing, I don't want to jump too far ahead because I challenged, myself and I prayed to the Most High, and then I, have faith in him and in you all in here. It's going to be I put some verses in here that's hard to understand. Even for me, it's hard to expound. But I didn't want to duck no smoke, quote unquote. So I like to address these things, through prayer and, everything. I believe I have a grasp on what it's saying, but, we got each other as well. So again, now we're jumping over to Romans, because this is Paul, who, if we took Paul at face value, according to what the Christians are teaching us, I wouldn't listen to nothing Paul said, because he would be a complete schizophrenic, according to the way they have given him to us. Understanding from the way that I understand that the Father has blessed us to have the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of understanding. Now I have a stronger grasp of what Paul is saying, but you will also see that people like James and Peter, they were expounding and making things more clear on what Paul was saying also. And this is where, not quite, but maybe another slide or two, where it's like, it could be tough because you almost have to go to this chapter, then this chapter, and you're bouncing back and forth to get the full picture of what we're saying. Like you might have to go to Romans and then go to Galatians and then go to Philip. So I was like, man, I want to keep it in a way that prayerfully the people can understand. So continuing with this theme about being doers, this is Romans chapter 2, verse 12 and 13. And KJV is what I used, I believe, with this. And it reads, Shema, for as many as have sinned without law shall also perish without law. For as many has sinned without law shall also perish without law. And as many as have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. Go ahead. Oh, okay. So again, we talked about how when the Messiah comes, he's judging by the law, right? And we see that here. And then with the knowledge of the law and going against it, you're lawless or breaking the law. But then there's people who may not know the law or understand it fully. They're in sin because they don't know the law. That makes sense?
I think it's Christianized. A lot of verses like this, we're going to bring out when we get to destroying Christian dogma, New Testament, because it's not fair to Yah to judge someone who don't know his law. He wouldn't be a righteous judge if he's judging someone eating pork and he never told him to eat pork, not eat pork. So this is one of the many verses we're going to dissect, showing that, like you were mentioning, alluded to a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
If we take these letters at face value, Uncle Shabal is a schizophrenic. But by the power of God, we know y'all have butchered his letters. So we're going to give you some of the names of the so-called New Testament editors who have reshaped his letters to fit their Christian doctrine. So you can't sin without law. And that's going back to the conversation me and Gina was having this morning. I just let it flow. She was asking the question of, y'all know the favorite verse they take y'all to, Galatians 3. Sin, law came because of sin.
Just hold up then, Mara, real quick, because we go into all this. So just to keep going on the theme, and this will be expounded upon, the only way I could take, just like what he said, just specifically verse 12, because verse 13 is really what we came for. But verse 12, the Most High didn't give the nations, like our captors, the law, but they'll also perish even though they don't have the law. Because, not trying to like explain this specifically, but just that's just a fact, correct? Like they're gonna perish because of the sins they transgress against us. Is that correct to say?
Right, for what they did to us, but then it's a slippery slope, because by you taking us captive and then you're reading our scrolls, the Most High knows, even though you are a stranger.
Now you have the law.
Right.
Now you have the law,
Most High
correct?
knows what you understand.
Yeah.
So you're trying to be all up our Kool-Aid, and now you don't put condemnation on you, because our law says don't sleep with your sister.
Right.
And you sleep with your sister.
Con.
So by y'all being greedy and trying to be like us, you done got yourself under condemnation. When had you just made us your slave, and hey, y'all keep that Hebrew stuff over there, I'm going to do what I want over here, the Most High couldn't judge you for what you was doing. But now that you done read our scrolls and translated them, and now the Most High understands, you understood what that said. And
you created a religion and doctrines and everything based off it. So yeah, that's true. It's just, a bad, translation or just purposely corrupted text. Just sticking with that theme of being a doer or have to do something. Verse 13 is, just a precept of what we came for from the stuff we read before. For not the hearers of the law are just before the Most High, but the doers of the law shall be justified. Go ahead.
So the first instruction, the first law was to act, don't eat that. Right. He kept it simple. You have everything that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
He violated that. So we end up in Egypt, this Ryan, and they come out. They've been so far removed. I'm gonna have to put this down so y'all can see. So they had the instructions from the beginning. Right? We were initially to be the light to them and draw them towards it. He gave them gods and told us that we were his inheritance. So we supposed to be the examples to them. Of course, we fell from grace. And now, like you said, they're going to twist the books, they're going to read our stuff. You got it. There is no excuse for it.
Mm-hmm. Con, I mean, that's also true.
They made their punishment worse. That's what
yeah.
they did.
Yeah.
That's what they did.
Yeah. So we talked about being doers, and is somebody unmuted want to say something?
Are we getting to that situation part?
Right, that's what I said. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
Well, just to kind of go with what Marah was alluding to before, 2nd Barak chapter 15 is one of my favorites in regards to that topic. Verses 5 and 6, it says, man will not rightly have understood my judgment unless he had accepted the law, and I had instructed him in understanding. But now, because he transgressed wittingly, yea, just on this ground that he know thereof, he shall be tormented. So you might not understand the law, or this is just the way I understand or look at that precept that you brought out, saying that those who are without the law shall die without the law. I precept this with Ezekiel, and it's saying, just because you didn't know the law, you're still gonna die and be condemned because you didn't have the understanding of the law. But because you knew about it, because prophecy, Yahweh himself said, this report shall go into all the earth, and then the end's gonna come. There's nobody who's gonna be without excuse saying they didn't know, especially in our generation. So I look at it that way, but I could be wrong. I just wanted to add that.
What's that first precept you said?
2nd Baruch chapter 15 verses 5 and 6.
He's not totally off, because even the nation we're under right now, their whole judicial system is set up after what?
The law. Yeah. Yeah.
Get across the street.
So it's like but it's still, even still, the point is that verse in Romans 2, that's where you just start to get tricky. You got to be real careful. You got to read these things like 1,000 times and know the old, or not, I hate using those terms, but use what was given before in order to understand what's being said now. And that's why I openly admit, like, some of the way it's written, like, it takes me a while to like understand what it's saying, and sometimes, and it just takes.
When you get confused like that, you get confused like that, especially when you've been studying and seeking out like that. When these verses confuse you, that's pretty much a dead giveaway. It's corruption. Because he says, teach this to your sons' sons. So none of this is like Chef said, like this is easy.
Right.
So when you start getting confused, like this verse is probably either the translation or they didn't corrupt what was originally there.
Right. Yeah.
It shouldn't be confusing you like that.
Right. Yeah. I don't even think it's necessarily like, I guess you can still use that word confusion, but it's like trying to break it down what it's trying to say. So it's the same thing. So Hebrews 11, I didn't write any verses up here because it's pretty much like the whole chapter. So I wanted to touch on that. If we could just, divvy it up, somebody read a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let me turn to it in here too. Shemai, who want to start? Just start at the top.
Okay. Hebrews 11, verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Verse 2.
Stop real quick. So usually they'll stop right there, and then the whole sermon is just based off that. Yeah, the faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And then they
I was gonna say that verse in itself sounds good. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Amanah is based on past experience. So how can this be evidence of something not seen? It's based on past experience. You have to see it.
I definitely see that point, but also too, those promises that were yet to be fulfilled, we have to have faith in that also. So that's where we have, you haven't seen it, but you still believe in a sense. That makes sense.
But those promises came from who?
Yeah, from the Most High down through Abraham, et cetera, et cetera.
So we're trusting in Yah, and that's why he did all those miracles, so y'all can
believe, because and that's why it's important to share the stories with each generation so that we can all have that same quote unquote faith. So that's why I say what you said is correct. Things just haven't been fulfilled, but we are supposed to be like, yeah, I already know he done delivered them out of Egypt the first time, he gonna deliver us out of Egypt. So in a sense, we've seen it. It's like English is just not good. It's just bad, man. That's all I can say. The English is just not, it doesn't give you what the context is. Read verse 2 for me.
Verse 2. For by it the elders obtained a good report.
For me, this is the first time that not today, but as I was doing this the first time that verse stuck out to me, because it's saying by this faith that he's about to expound upon, and we know in Hebrew that's amanah. Almost did a second sharash ibar, but we know that's amanah, right? That's something that was established from the beginning. First thing established and given to us, right? If you go to the Amplified Bible, that verse 2 says, by this kind of faith, the men of old gained divine approval. So you had to have, so it's saying through this faith, which he's going to expound upon. It's going to make more sense. They received approval. Read verse 3.
Verse 3. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of Yah, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear.
Keep going.
By faith, Abel offered unto Yah a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous. Yah testifying of his gift, and by it he being dead yet speaks.
So right there, the elders of old, through this faith, obtained divine approval, right? So to obtain this approval through faith, Abel had to do something. It says, by faith, Abel offered unto Yahweh a more excellent sacrifice. So through a sacrifice, he obtained a witness that he was made righteous. Through a sacrifice, he was made righteous, lawful. But that's also described as faith. You see what I'm getting at?
Package deal.
It's a package deal. Keep going. Verse 5.
Verse 5. By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because Yah had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony that he pleased Yah.
Keep going.
But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Yah, must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So
right here again, and that Enoch, we could touch on that later, but that's not necessarily in the main point about him and the translation and all that. But verse 6, without faith, it's impossible to please him. Abel's faith was shown by the sacrifice offered, correct? And then it says, but for he that cometh to the Most High must believe. So we must believe that he is, and then that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. You're doing something. You're taking action. I can't just, for me to be up here and bestowed upon me a blessing to bring a word forth to y'all, I had to have sought the Most High, to find the Most High, to have the truth revealed to me, to have the knowledge that we are the Israelites and I'm supposed to keep the commandments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my faith was shown through the diligence that, and all of us, through the diligence that we have done so far to seek him. 7.
By faith, Noah, being warned of Yah, of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness, which is by faith.
I mean, even reading this right here, like I'm learning even as I'm going. So by faith, this invisible thing, substance of things not seen, substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen, right? By that, Noah was warned from the Most High of things not seen as yet, meaning we never seen no flood. We never seen, according to the count, some accounts, we haven't even seen rain, right? And so he had to,
Not rain
right? I don't think it rained yet.
It was
Dew was
growing in crops.
right.
They hadn't seen rain yet.
So he was warned of the Most High by things not seen, but he had to have faith that what the Most High was saying was true. And doing so, he had to move, right? Because if he said, "Oh, I believe you," and Most High come back like, "Hey, my boy, you ain't building this ark yet," then where's his faith? He would, that means that you don't believe in the Most High. And you could, be practical, like the Mariah used. We have faith that this chair is going to hold me when I sit down. So we sit down, we do something. How if you ask somebody that you comfortable, like they come to your house, but then they sitting in the corner like this, they're like, wait a minute, you ain't comfortable. Cause like when I come over, I'm feet up, I'm chilling. That's how you know I'm comfortable, right?
I'm gonna sit down here.
Right, like, you want to use the bathroom? No. So like, then that must mean I don't have faith. My actions is showing if I'm comfortable or not, is what I'm trying to say. I hope that, that makes sense. I know we got rowdy, got excited. But you're just seeing it. And then it says, because of his actions, he was made heir of righteousness, which is by faith or through faith. He was made righteous because of what he did to show his faith. That makes sense. Verse 8.
By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing whither he went.
He ain't know where he was going, but he had faith in the Most High, believed in something that he couldn't see, but he got up and moved. Right? Let me see if it's something I want to skip down to. 17.
Verse 17. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son,
18.
of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called.
So he was tried, just like it says we'll all be tried, right? He offered up Isaac. So he did this by faith. He didn't, if he believed the Most High, right? And he just was like, well, the Most High said X, Y, and Z, but we just gonna stay right here in this tent. He wouldn't have been called a friend of the Most High. He would have been called wicked. We wouldn't even be here today. So again, this faith, this substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, it's a package deal. It's more to it than that. And it's never explained or expounded upon to us in the Christian circles. Let me see. Right. So I think for now, the point was made in that chapter, and we're going to jump over to James, back to James chapter 2, and we're going to go to verse 14. And then I think after that is when we get into, the Galatians and all that stuff. So I wrote on here faith and works, because at this point is when the concept is fully together because I talked about works hard in the beginning. We've been covering works and faith throughout, and now it's like just faith and works together, showing that it's a package deal. And this is why they wanted to take, James and toss his epistles out. If they couldn't do that, they just want to try to discredit them. So James chapter 2, verse 14.
I have an ESV.
Sure.
What good is it, my brothers, if someone says that he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him?
Stop right there. So again, that's pretty the same, clear. There's and it's on the screen for KJV. What does it profit, my brethren, though a man say he have faith and not works? Can the faith save him? Can I sit on my hands and make whatever magically happen? Keep going.
If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead.
So again, now he's putting it into application, meaning that if we let's say, for example, here at the Bayat,
I was gonna faith in charity. You got faith, charity gonna hold you, you gonna see that.
right? But also too, in this application here, if a brother or sister came from off the street, or one of us that we already know was in need, my car broke down. Hey, everybody, you know, such and such is, or chef's car broke down, or, you know, somebody had to go to the doctor and they need a couple dollars. And we say, well, I know you need this, this, and this. I'm gonna pray for you though. I'm gonna have faith. James is, because they're trying to show us how to live, how to operate. How do you love your brother, your neighbor, your sister? And so he's explaining that if somebody comes to you, verse 15, if a brother or sister be naked, destitute, or of daily food, and one of you say to them, go in peace, be ye warmed and filled. So I'm cold, I don't really got the proper clothes, I'm hungry. We send them on their way and say, be well and be warm and be filled.
30 degrees outside.
You're gonna be filled in the spirit, that your stomach is gonna be filled by the grace of God. It's no way, that's not, they're letting you know that spiritual things are physical things, spiritual things are earthly things. So the spiritual aspect of loving my brother, my neighbor, etc., is if it's in our means to help, we actually need to do something. That's what James is explaining to the congregation, to the people. And that's just so contradictory to everything that we're taught. So he says, faith, if it have not works, is dead, being alone. That faith and sending them on their way, the sisters and the people, the old ladies sitting in the front rows of the church, and then they write letters and ask for prayer, and they need X, Y, and Z, and they give their last tenth to the pastor, but the pastor won't in turn actually do anything for the people, help those people. He just takes all the money, and I need a G6 and a G7. This will help me fly around the world and preach the gospel to other people. You just want the G7 for one, vanity, but when you fly around to the other places, you can rob them too. That's what you want the stuff for. So James is really breaking down how we are to live. Verse 18, 19, and 20. Anybody?
But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from the works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that Yahweh is one.
Stop 1 second. 1 second. He just reiterating that if someone says they have faith and I have works, and then show me your faith without your works, I will show you my faith by my works. Again, that action comes in and takes place, right? Now, verse 19, she started going into, but I highlighted it up there because this is like learning something on the way to something. Thou believest that there is one God.
3 gods.
7 gods. Like, I'm like, bro, they saying it all throughout. It's no Trinity, it's one God. And he says, if you do so believe that, you do well. You're right, is what right? And then he says, the devils also do believe and tremble. Read verse 20 for me.
Do you want to be shown, you foolish person, that faith apart from works is useless?
Faith without works is dead. I guess you got this whole thing then. Go ahead, verse 21.
Not Abraham our father justified by works with the offer of his son Isaac on the altar.
So it just said, was not Abraham justified or made righteous by his works, which we read in Hebrews 11, because, and it can get tricky, but he had to do that action in order to be considered righteous. Keep going.
You see that faith was active along with his works. Faith was completed by his works. And the scripture was fulfilled that says Abraham believed Yahweh and it was counted to him as righteousness. It's called Abraham's blood.
And verse 24 says, you see then how that by works a man is justified. That is, do you understand? Like, they say you're not made righteous by works. You're not made righteous by keeping the law. You see, that's what we're taught, right? But he says clearly here in their own translation, by works a man is justified and not by faith only. That's like, what do you do with that? Like, what do you do with that? Anybody got any like idea, like, or any comments, period?
Yeah, I know. Well, you asked. Since you asked, that's when they're gonna start moaning and groaning and performing and get you emotional because what they're saying don't match the text. Y'all don't hear me in here. They have to come with that charisma because their theology don't line up with the text or the culture. So they got to do the, if you ever been in the city and watching brother to the three-car Bonnie, they got to keep you moving, keep you feeling good. Go slap your neighbor. Somebody do a dance in here. Watch my dance. Because their theology is not in the book. Even in your so-called New Testament, your theology is not in here. And James, Jacob, is the brother of Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
To me, he's the highest witness, not Paul.
Right, and I wanted to expound on. Well, we will, and you will too, because you had something you wanted to say. But that's how I was thinking about it. I'm like, James is taking. Paul is going around and going to the different assemblies, etc., sending his letters, etc. James is coming back. They're all really saying the same thing, but James is expounding on, if you mistakenly believe that Paul is saying that it's faith by itself, he's explaining that's not what he was saying. Does that make sense? He's coming back cleaning up what Paul was trying to say. If someone took it out of context, because Peter said because they didn't have the knowledge, they could take Paul's writings to their own destruction. Go ahead.
And I was about to say, so when it comes to Galatians,
Mm-hmm.
over Galatians.
Paul, right?
They say Paul wrote that.
Yeah.
So even then, like, I think one of my coworkers tried to say too, Galatians 2 and 16. Knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Mashiach, even we have believed in Mashiach, for we by the works of the law, for by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified.
That's why we. Oh, I didn't want to interrupt. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, they'll take you to that. And that's why I say it's a lot in the New Testament. I ain't got there yet, but I'm seeing that it's a lot in the New Testament. It's seen all over.
So the first thing I would say is the statement I said in the beginning. If we took Paul at face value, then this man, I'm not listening to any of this, because it sounds like 1 minute we're saying one thing, and then the next minute you're saying something else, right? Because Romans 2 said be doers. So obviously, which one is it, right? But I got that in here. So that's the whole, we're going to get to that. Make sure where I was. Friend of God, faith only. Okay, so verse 25. And now I'll just read it. And he just gives another example. Likewise, also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works, when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. Right. And then I just jump right into which I pretty much know people gonna start coming to. And it was getting kind of late, so I just screenshotted it so we can have it on the screen. But I think for people that's like at home, I think it's okay. I think you can see it, can't you, Shell? Yeah. So this is Romans 3, and then for me, one of the hard ones was Romans 4. So I'm going for Romans 3 and 4, but let's go here and see what we can unpack. So we've seen this whole time, it's been talking about you're judged by your works. You're judged by, keeping of the commandments. Your faith is established through your actions. Faith and works is a package deal. You're justified by your works, which shows your faith. Those have been the themes of this class. So Romans chapter 3 and starting at verse 21. Yes, sir. Yeah. So I'll start. It says, but now the righteousness of the Most High without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of the Most High, which is by faith of Yahushua HaMashiach unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of the Most High. That verse he got from David in Psalms, talking about the nation. Being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Yahushua HaMashiach, whom the Most High have set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remissions of sins that are past through the forbearance of the Most High. So I'm going to go forward and then go back, right? Anybody have an idea of what propitiation means? Or online? Anybody online also? I guess it's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
She said sacrifice. What did you have? So what do you have, Nariah?
That word propitiation reminds me of that term sole proprietorship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he took all of it on for us. He just essentially like a sacrifice. He took it for us, so we didn't have to take it.
So I'm just using their stuff just to see how you can catch them, or how it lines out, right? The key word here, I agree, sacrifice or atonement, like the feast or the Day of Atonement, right? So it says, whom the Most High have set forth to be an atonement through faith, amanah, in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remissions of sins that are past through the forbearance of the Most High. Anybody know what forbearance means? You might have heard it with student loans. Is that what he said? Student loans, right? Right. So when they forbear your student loans, what do? And help me. So for forbear, it says, if you go down when it to where it says law, the dot at the bottom, it says the action of refraining from exercising a legal right, especially enforcing the payment. The sins caused a debt to be owed to the Most High. You supposed to have died. I'm supposed to have died, etc. The Most High forbeared the punishment so that we can receive the atonement. Ooh, it's starting to get me. Oh man, through the atonement of Yahushua, like goodness gracious, man. So
that's why we esteem people. They get confused when they hear we don't worship the Son. No man can come in front of him for what you just brought out. Our judgment was delayed, postponed, refrained because of him. When you understand, and maybe y'all ain't sinners, I never smoked, I never drank, chewed, all that crap. But when you know your life was full of sin and you was full of evil, that's why we love him.
Con. So things that get people twisted, justified freely by his grace through the redemption. So to be made righteous freely through the Most High's grace, it doesn't mean that now I just do what I want to do. It doesn't mean that the law is done away with, and that's how they teach it. It's saying because it is freely by his grace, which is a covering, which is like what Noah got. He was to build that ark so that ark can be his grace. What's the Hebrew word? Khan. Chana or Chan. So him being in that ark was Chan, grace. Our grace, it's freely because the Most High chose Israel. But to be made righteous, so when the Most High sees us, he sees Yahweh Shai. But now, if we go to Hebrews 10, it says that once we come to the knowledge of the truth, there is no more sacrifice for sin if you stay lawless. So we can't, this won't apply to us if we stay in our sins, because right here it shows you, it says that forbearance and that atonement was for, I should have underlined it, but it says for the remission of the sins of the past, before you had the knowledge of the truth. Now, when you're in the knowledge of the truth, you may be on the mark, marked by the blood, tamah, perfect. So that word perfect in Hebrew is tamah, to marked by the blood or marked by the power of the Most High. If you slipped and fell and committed a transgress or a fall, it's not gonna have you go back to before you receive this atonement. You just get back in line. You're still covered by the Most High. You just have to repent, believe in his son, and stay on track. Don't live in the sins. Don't stay in a sinful life, whatever it may be. But for example, the church may accept someone that's like homosexual, let them live in that life and say, only God can judge. That person can repent. They have to leave that lifestyle behind. They can't stay in that lifestyle. So hopefully that's making some sense of at least the first part of what of Romans chapter 3 is saying. Any questions yet about this? Good. Mariah, any comment?
You're staying with Romans here?
Right, so far. And then I'm just gonna read 27 and
I just this is high level, so they may be using babes, but I just want to just drop home the point that we know this record of Romans was written to our people, Israelites, Hebrews, and the reason why we know this, when you go back to Romans chapter 3, verse 23, this is one of the Christian staples that they mishandle. They don't understand what it's saying. Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of Yah. And they think this is about them. And it's like, this is not about you, because you never received a contract. You never had a contract to break. But the point I want to harp on is, and come short of the glory of Yah. One precept is 1 Samuel, if you're taking notes, 1 Samuel chapter 4, 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 21. The glory of Yah has only been with Israel. And one proof text of that is 1 Samuel 4 and 21. We just lost a battle. Saul was just killed, and his son was just killed. And his Saul's daughter-in-law named her child Ichabod. But that's a translation. She named that son Yah-kabod.
Yah's glory.
Yah's glory has left Israel. So when you put these scriptures, whether it's so-called old or new, back into the cultural context, Romans is written to Israelites. And we're not stretching it, we're not twisting it. We just understand the culture now by Hashem Yahweh Shai. So this Romans all have sinned and come short is talking to Israelites.
And just to back you up, Marah, if you turn to Psalms 14, I'll just have you read it. Just turn to Psalms 14 for me, please.
I wanted another witness. Thank you. Right?
Psalms 14.
Where we at?
Just start at the top.
This is Psalms of Tahallum 14 from the KJV. It says, the fool have said in his heart, there is no power, no Allah. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. Yahweh looked down from heaven, Shemayim, upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand and seek Yahweh. Verse 3, they are all gone aside. They are all together become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one.
So is that note there? They all gone aside and all together become filthy. You can help me, because those two precepts seem to go together. Even their commentary says that he's pulling from this. Is he talking about the wicked among the Israelites? That's what I thought.
Yeah, because verse 4 explains it.
Go ahead.
Verse 4 gives the context of what he's talking about. Psalms of Tahallum 14, verse 4. Have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread, and call not upon Yahweh. So, and then to give you more context, that he said he looked down from heaven upon the children of men. Well, the text says his eyes are always upon who?
Jacob.
Israel. So this is about us.
So then that just more credence to Romans 3, when you read and it says all have come short, or all, right, and all have sinned, and there's none righteous, no, not one, is talking about the Israelites who departed.
That's another precept.
SELAH, you had said earlier, it made me consider, I could be wrong, but the fact that Paul was, he was walking out the law, he was carrying out the law, he was judging based on the law. And so when the Galatians were written, it looks, when you read Galatians 2:16, saying that works of the law but through faith in Jesus Christ, it would appear that he had an experience on the road to Damascus.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you go back to Romans, it looks like he's had that experience. Now, the conversation, but the language appears to have changed a little.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, Paul was killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we get authority from the church. Stone.
It's gonna make sense when we get to the end. I definitely see what you're saying, but as when it's like maybe 8 slides or so left, or maybe less than that actually, because we already seen the other two as definitions, so it's less than that. So let me go ahead and read verse 27 real quick. Romans 3 verse 27. Where is boasting then? It is excluded. Remember earlier I told y'all the people were boasting in the law. That was an issue that was going on in the Israelite quote unquote community. And it said it is excluded by the law of works, no, but by the law of faith. That sounds confusing, right? But we're gonna try to make sure people understand it, because it says if he says, but by the law of works, no, but by the law of faith, we've already covered that the law of faith is what was given to us from the beginning, correct? So then if that's the case, he can't be saying no longer keep the law, the commandments. That can't be what he's saying. Verse 28, therefore we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. You could also say a man is justified by faith without the works of the law. Okay, just keep that in your mind. And hopefully, prayerfully, it's going, when we finish, we will understand it. Is he the power or Elohim of the Jews only? Is he not also of the Gentiles, the Garyam, those who were sent away, the other 10 tribes, or you want to say northern kingdom? Yes, the Gentiles also, seeing that it is 3 gods.
One God.
It's right there again, one God, which shall justify the circumcision by faith and uncircumcision through faith. Verse 31, do we then make void the law through faith? Meaning, because we have faith, do we now discount the commandments? And he says, the Most High forbid we actually establish the law. Now, again, Amanah means the first thing that was established, the first order that was established. So he's honestly, if it's English and it's tricky, but he's actually telling you you're supposed to keep the law. But what is this? Is there a different law that he's talking about? That's the question. Go ahead, Nariah.
I was just about to say, why is Paul still talking about establishing the law when I thought Hamashiach finished the law when he said he was coming to establish the law and not destroy it?
That's a great point. Why is Paul talking about establishing the law through faith if Hamashiach destroyed the law when he came and fulfilled his works? So again, it's all of us have been affected through the corrupt text and through the corrupt doctrine, but that wouldn't make any sense at all. So going on, and hopefully this is where we're getting ready to go through it and then pass, let Marah expound too, because he mentioned specifically Galatians. So Romans 4, I remember back maybe a year or two ago, I was reading it again and going through it, and I text Nariah, I'm like, why Paul had to write like this? Just messing with them. But I was like, I could see how people could get tripped up. So let's just start at the top. Romans chapter 4. It said, and he's continuing from what we just said. The last thing he said is we established the law through faith in Romans 3. It says, what shall we say then that Abraham our father, as pertaining to the flesh, have found? For if Abraham were justified by works.
So I'm sorry, was Abraham Italian?
No, he wasn't a Roman. He was the Israelite. And it says, he hath whereof to glory, but not before the Most High. For what saith the scripture? Abraham believed the Most High, and it was counted to him for righteousness. So with that statement, if you're not careful, and if you're in a Christian circle, they're going to paint that picture to make it seem like, see, Abraham wasn't justified by his works, but because he believed. Hopefully, James just expounded to you that because he believed, he did something. So in a sense, his belief in the Father, seeing his belief, made him righteous. But to prove his belief, he had to act, which showed his faith. Does that make sense, y'all? Because I know it's
plain.
Okay. Because it can be tricky. It can be tricky if you just read it straight. It can be tricky. So I'm all praise. Thank you, Yahweh. Now to him that worketh is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt, right? So now it's like, well, you've been talking about works this whole time, but he says here, him that worketh is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt. But what type of work is he talking about? And I hope that you see in a second. I'm going to skip it and I'm going to bring it back. even as David also described the blessings or the blessedness of the man unto whom the Most High imputed righteousness without works, saying, blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. So we're going to come back to that last little part there in a second. We're going to jump over. Now we're going to get to the Galatians. What was your question, just in case I didn't have that very specific verse in here?
I just know that it was the verse that came up. I just know that it's adulterated, so I was just gonna.
I know that it's adulterated. I just wanted to know, like, what do you guys think that those verses mean? Galatians 2:15 and 16.
Okay, let's come back to it. Let's come back to it at the end. Okay, I didn't know if it was going. Let's see. I'm trying to see how it's going to flow. We almost at the end. It's 46 of 51. We almost at the end. So I'm gonna read it. You know how I read, but I'm gonna read it, and then we're gonna hope to. I'm gonna show a video, and then I'm gonna get Marah to clean it up. That makes sense. So yeah, the pressure is on Marah. No, I believe it's all coming together. I'm especially since y'all were good with that Romans 4. So okay, Galatians 3. O foolish Galatians, who have bewitched you that you should not obey the truth. What's the truth?
The law. That's Psalm 119, verse 116.
No, I'm giving you another one. And John 7.
So he already, because when you read it, if I read it all together like the Christians, real quick. O foolish Galatians, who have bewitched you that you should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Jesus Christ have been evidently set forth, crucified among you. So they'll take that one sentence and just start rambling about, see, you're foolish because you want to go away from Jesus and you trying to keep these laws. But that's not what it's saying, because he already started it off in the beginning. Who bewitched you that you should not obey the law, the truth, before whose eyes Yahushua have been evidently set forth. He is the commandments. He is the law. You ought to walk as he have walked. Go ahead.
It doesn't say that, it just gives directly.
And amazing, right? And that's what we got to deal with. That's what we have to deal with. And that's more of kind of like how Marah wants to, point out with the text, but that's just what we have to deal with. So thank you for pointing that out. So verse 2, this only would I learn of you, receive ye the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? Receive ye the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? So him saying you receive the Spirit, or he's asking, this only would I learn of you, have you received the Spirit by the works of the law or by the learning of the faith? Are you so foolish, having begun in the Spirit? That's what I wanted. Are you now made perfect by flesh? Can somebody get the Romans for me? You know what I'm talking about, Marah? The Spirit and walking at the Spirit and faith. It's either Romans 7 or Romans 8. Because definitions is something that when I was learning this stuff, credit where credit is due. It was brother Yahushua at Rebirth who was stressing the importance of definitions when you're dealing with Paul. Chef.
When you was talking about all being established,
Mm-hmm.
I looked up the definition. Based on their definition of established, it says to uphold.
Con. So through faith, we uphold what was given to us from the beginning. Con. So Romans 7, and 14. So he says in Galatians, so I guess Marag, you can read this. I'll read the Galatians. Are you so foolish, having begun in the spirit, are you now made perfect by the flesh? So in Romans, he tells you what being in the spirit is, and he tells you what being in the flesh is.
Romans 7:14. For we know that the law is spiritual.
The law is spiritual. So if he's saying, are you so foolish, having begun in the spirit, he's saying, having begun in the law.
Come on now. Come on now. I love it. I love it. It's just put two and two together.
And this is, and I'm telling y'all, I was over there like, Father, I kind of get it. I get it, but it's tough. But the Father is, he's blessing us. He's helping bring this out. So, and then it says, are you now being made perfect by the flesh, right? What's the precept for that, for the flesh? Okay, give me Romans. Now read Romans. I'm gonna read Galatians again. Give me 7 and 25. So it says, are you so foolish, having begun in the law, which is spiritual, are you now made perfect by the flesh? Give me verse 25.
Romans 7 and 25. I thank God through Yahushua HaMashiach, our Adonai. So then, with the mind, I myself serve the law of Yah, but with the flesh, the law of sin.
So if you're in the flesh, you're in the law of sin. If you're spiritual, you're in the law that was given to us by the Most High. You see that makes sense? But if you read it from the Christian lens, they're saying us trying to keep the law is fleshly. Spiritual is believing in Jesus Christ. They would call good evil and evil good. We in the last days. They just reversed it on us. So verse 4, have you suffered so many things in vain? If it be yet in vain, he therefore that ministereth to you the Spirit and worketh miracles among you, doeth he it by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? So he keeps using this phrase, works of the law. And it makes it sound like he's saying, is this person coming to you in the spirit, being spiritual and doing miracles through the, belief in Jesus? Is he doing this by the works of the law, by the commandments, or by faith, something that's abstract? But that's not what he's saying. Because if it is what he's saying, Christianity is trash, and we just gonna throw the whole thing in the trash. You see what I'm saying, Sister Joy? Because you, on one hand, you're saying stuff about keep the commandments or establish the law. And then on the other hand, you're saying, are they doing this by the works of the law? Which one is it? What are you saying? So we're going to prayerfully get to it. And he just says the same thing again, verse 6 that we've covered already. Even as Abraham believed the Most High, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. Know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. But if we put that in Hebrew, the faith, what was established was that Abraham, through his seed, the Most High chose that nation through Abraham. We're the same of Abraham. So if he's saying something that was abstract, then that wouldn't necessarily flow, if that makes sense.
Well, if these are spiritual sons of Abraham, this text don't make sense.
Right.
Because he's referring back to Abraham's promise.
Through faith.
Abraham's promise was for his physical seed.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Abraham believed your physical seeds are going to be blessed. So if this text, through the Christian eyes, why are you referring back to Abraham, who did have faith, but he did something?
Right.
And then if you want me to believe that it's all about spiritual Abraham, he's referring back to Abraham's physical promise for his physical seed. Your Christian theology don't make
It doesn't make sense at all. And that's why sometimes it takes us like, what is going on right here? Because their stuff doesn't make any sense. So flipping over, going to verse 10 and okay, yeah, I'm gonna read and I'll see where it stops. For as many as are of the works of the law are under the curse. For it is written, cursed is everyone that continueth not in all the things which are written in the book of the law to do them. Do y'all see? If you didn't know what's going on, this doesn't sound right. I'm gonna read it again. For as many as are of the works of the law are under a curse. Christians are going to say, see, if you keep that law, you under a curse. For it is written, cursed is everyone that continueth not in all the things which are written in the book of the law. What is he talking about? What is he talking about?
This editor is being disingenuous. You only curse if you don't do what's in the law.
Right.
So you've twisted this verse for your theology. That's why we're saying these texts are written by Christians. And it's like, we caught you. The Most High opened our eyes. You're not making sense here.
Right.
I'm only cursed if I don't do what's written in the law. So what are you saying? I'm cursed if I follow the law.
If you take Paul at face value, you compare what he says to Yahushua, you have to figure out who you're going to serve. You're going to serve the Most High, or you're going to serve Paul. Most of the time in the Christian church, Paul was ours. But they're God. Why? So Paul said, go with that. Stay over there.
Yeah, and this.
Gerald got his hand raised.
Go ahead, Gerald.
So, the water. So I would say starting out, because I know you're gonna break it down some more. Initially, I would say when you first read that, we got to remember when the law was given, a blessing and a curse was put before them. So if they did it, they obeyed, they were blessed. If they disobeyed, then they had to deal with curse. So out the gate, just by that verse alone, if you just deal with that, then you can't say by being under the law or by doing the law, you are cursed, because then that contradicts when it was first, originally presented. So it has to be another meaning, to what he's trying to say. So
yes,
I'm gonna stay here until you break down the rest of it, because I
want Marada hear it too. But were they keeping the law? Yeah, I'm asking Gerald and everybody.
Yeah, they were already keep.
Were they though?
Well, they were. So the Pharisees was adding to the law and twisting and doing more. So they made it kind of out of reach, so to speak. But the righteous individuals, I would say, it was their custom to keep the law. So you had obedient ones and you had some that was disobedient. That's why they was in that situation they was in.
So okay, let's see, let's go to Matthew chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15, Shemai, verse 2. Why do your disciples transgress the traditions? Real quick, Marah, what I asked was, were these people keeping the commandments? And from what we're reading here, what were they keeping the commandments? And then some context, and then we can go back and forth. I'm going to Matthew 15. Okay. So it says, why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, why do you also transgress the commandment of the Most High by your tradition? For the Most High commanded, saying, honor your father and mother. He that curseth father or mother, let him die at the death. But you say, whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, it is a gift. By whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have you made commandment of the Most High none effect by your tradition, you hypocrites. Well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching the doctrines of the commandments of men. I just want to see if it was anything else I want to bring out real quick, but not the commandments of the Father, doctrines of men. So that begs the question, what is this works of the law? Because it's a specific phrase, and he turns around and says, but cursed if you don't do what's written in the book of the law. So it sounds like he's talking about more than one law, because if he's not, then we just might as well just pack this up and throw it away. So I'm gonna play this video. This video, I've seen it. Go ahead, Gerald.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm gonna wait till you finish because I was about to attack that, but go. I'm gonna wait till you finish. I didn't know you was about to go.
Well,
to the
no,
video.
go. Oh, do you want to see the video first, or you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, I'll see the video first because I don't want to deter you from the way you was presenting.
I got you. Yeah. So let's see the video. And you know, it's from Garyam, or a Gentile, and let's just see what he has to say about it. And I want Marah to talk about his. You said something about Galatians earlier that you wanted to bring out. You was talking to Miss Gina.
Oh,
Okay. So let's just play this. This is an old video. Nariah, I think me and him shared it to each other, but he actually saved it. So he sent it to me, and let's just see what's going on here. 2 slides after this, I think 49, 50.
Hello, everybody. This is Greg. Video. This time we'll talk about.
Can y'all hear it?
This is going to help something. Biblical relations is often a stumbling block and a point of confusion for a lot of people.
But
there's some phrases that are used
real quick,
need to be clarified.
Real quick, I'll fast forward. Marah, I thought about it. I said, well, Marah says when it comes to things like this, sometimes it's better to hear from them than to hear from an Israelite. So that, you know.
Hello again, everybody. This is Greg with another video. This time we'll talk about topic of people. And there's some phrases that are used in here that need to be clarified. And once you get this, the book will be unlocked in so much sense, and we'll eliminate all the apparent contradictions, but seem to be contradictions. So what I want to talk about today very quickly is going to be the phrase works of the law, and I want to talk about the person of the law. Let's get right into the book. Let's begin with Galatians 2.
Don't worry about seeing the text, y'all. Just
Yet we know that a person is not justified by works of the law, but through faith in Yeshua Messiah. So we also have believed in Christ Jesus, Yeshua Messiah, in order to be justified by faith in Christ and not by works of the law, because by works of the law, no one will be justified. By works of the law, no one will be justified. That is crystal clear. He repeats it multiple times. We are not justified by doing the works of the law. Now, this is a problem if you don't understand what works of the law is. In Christianity, this is what I thought it was, and most Christians today think the phrase works of the law means doing the things that are written in the law of Moses. And to prove beyond all doubt, make it very easy to see that is incorrect. Works of the law does not mean doing the things written in the law of Moses. Now, let's go to Romans 2:13. Now, this is the same guy, okay? This is Paul, and he says in Romans 2:13, it is not the hearers of the law who are righteous before God, but the doers of the law will be justified. The doers of the law will be justified. Now, how confusing is that? Listen to what he says. The doers of the law will be justified. Jump right back to Galatians. By works of the law, no one will be justified. Okay, so you have a choice. You either need to decide that works of the law and doing the law are two different things. Doing the works of the law and doing the law are two different things,
or Paul is schizophrenic. I mean, that is pretty much what it boils down to. Both of those cannot be true. And let me drive the point home further by going to Galatians 3. So I'm going to tell you what works of the law is. Listen to Galatians 3. For all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse. For it is written, cursed be everyone who does not abide by all things written in the book of the law and do them. All right? All who rely on works of the law are under a curse. Now, in Christianity, in most Christians today, they understand that works of the law is doing the law of Moses. But we have a problem here. We have a contradiction right inside the verse. If doing the works of the law and doing the written law of Moses and the law of God are the same thing, then you are literally cursed if you do and cursed if you don't. Because notice he says, all who rely on works of the law are in your curse. So if you do the works of the law, you're cursed. But then he actually cites something from the law of God, from the Torah, which says, cursed is everyone who does not do the things written in the book. Now that's a problem. You get what I'm saying? You're cursed if you do works of the law, and you're cursed if you don't do what's written in the law. Now they have to be two different things. Let's actually go to the source that's being cited in Deuteronomy 27 and 26. This is what Paul is putting on. First, be anyone who does not confirm the words of this law or this Torah by doing it. And all the people shall say and again. So you can clearly see, according to Scripture, that it is a curse if you don't do it. So you're cursed if you don't do the Torah, but you're cursed if you do the works of the law. Now let's keep reading, because remember, chapter, verse, and verse 8 is not part of the 5 text. So this was one continuous document when it was originally written. So after verse 26, we continue, and if you faithfully obey the voice of Yahweh your God, being careful to do all his commandments that I command you today, Yahweh your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you if you obey the voice of Yahweh your God. You see the problem there? You're blessed if you do, cursed if you do works of law, and you're cursed if you don't do the Torah. So works of law and doing the law are two different things. You want to kind of unravel the mystery and show you clearly what works of the law is. And we know that Messiah makes that crystal clear for it in Mark 7, verse 5. Follow along in here. And the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, as before, why do the disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands? Now, there it is. There's works of the law, guys. The tradition of the elders. The Pharisees and scribes, they don't rebuke Yeshua or accuse him by saying, you apostles, you disciples, they don't do what the Torah says. They're mad because they're not walking according to that tradition of the elders. These are customs and doctrines and commandments of men. So it's humiliating, but they eat with defiled hands, and he said to them, well, that Isaiah prophesied in hypocrite, as it is written. The people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship, teaching their doctrines, their commandments of men. Look at verse 8 and 9, they say here, you leave the commandment of God and hold to the tradition of men. So you see, the Spirit making a contrast between the written word of God and the law of Moses, and the tradition of men, the oral tradition, the religious aspect of Jesus. Verse 9, and he said to them, you have a fine way of rejecting the commandment of God in order to establish your tradition. So understand what's being said here. He's saying that your oral tradition is in contradiction to the word of God. And by choosing to obey the doctrines and the commandments of men, you're actually breaking the commandments of God. Now, maybe your family has tradition, and tradition is fine unless they contradict the word of God. Now, if your tradition contradicts the word of God, then you have to throw out your tradition. And this is clearly what's being said here, because if we read verses 10 through 13, it says, for Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and whoever reviles father and mother must clearly die. Now, that's a written commandment in the Torah. But you say, If a man tells his father or his mother, whatever you have gained from me for them, that is given God, then you no longer permit him to do anything to his mother or father, thus making void the word of God by your tradition that you have handed out in many such things you do. Let's give one more witness. I hope you're testing this. John 7:19. Has not Moses given you the law? Yet none of you keep the law. That's a huge problem for people because people always tell me, oh, the scribes and Pharisees, they kept the law. No, they did not. And the says it very clearly, Moses said it to you, but none of you is keeping it. What they were keeping was Judaism, the oral commandments, the religion of Judaism, which is different and in complete contradiction at times to the written word of God. So let me go back to the primary text we're going to with you, and that is back to Galatians 3:10. All who rely on the doctrines and the traditions and the commandments of men and religion, all who rely on religion are under a curse. Because the Torah actually says that anyone who does not do what's written in the law is cursed. So you see the contradiction. Once I brought in Mark chapter 7, you can see that the religion, the things we say to believe, the oral tradition, the commandments of God, they were actually in complete contradiction to what was written. So that is what Paul is saying here. He's saying if you're relying on works of the law, and that phrase messes people up because it has the word law in it. But I challenge you to do just a little bit of research and then do a Google search for works of the law, Qumran, Dead Sea Scrolls. Because when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, with all those fragments and pieces and the Bible, they actually found some documents called works of the law. In Hebrew, Ma'aseh HaTorah. They actually found documents which were full of it was written at this point, doctrines and commandments of men, religious laws that were dated to the time of Paul. So he's actually fighting against a group of people, and their movement, their teaching was called works of the law. You only find that phrase in Galatians and Romans. But that's actually what is going on here. Paul is saying you people that are relying on this group's teaching are cursed, because that teaching contradicts the written word of God. And it's awesome if people use the book of Galatians to try to say that the Torah has been done away with. But here we have a verse where Paul cites the Torah to disprove the doctrines and commandments of men. So the works of law, whenever you see that phrase, understand you're talking about God, man's people. But doing the law itself will justify you. You're not saved, you're not saved by doing the law. You're saved by Yeshua, but you're not justified by obeying the doctrines and commandments of men, but you are justified and made righteous by doing what the Torah says. It's not salvation, Yeshua saves us, but our righteousness is in our obedience to the written word of God, not in the commandments and doctrines of men. So I hope that clears up the book of Leviticus.
So he said a couple things at the end. It's like, whatever, but the whole point was that there seemingly would be a difference between that phrase works of the law and book of the law. And real quick, I want to just make a couple statements, answer Gerald's question, and pass it to Marah. So when you look back, if we go to Joshua chapter 1, if we go to Joshua chapter 1, and like a good one that he brought out as well was, Deuteronomy 27, cursed be he that confirmeth not all the words of this law to do them. And all the people say, Amen. Joshua chapter 1 and verse 8, it says, this book of the law, according to, English, this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and thou shalt have good success. So if you go back to Galatians, he says to do all the things written in the book of the law, just like it says right here in Joshua. But then he says, cursed be the ones who do the works of the law. Now, also too, the thing that was, I don't want to use the word change, but the sacrificial laws our people were boasting in as well, and they took it for granted. Marah has brought that out many times. That's also something that was contextually going on in their era. So you had the doctrines of men, and you had the sacrificial laws, which Yahushua covered the sacrificial laws once he came and had his atonement. That was the propitiation of sins for the forbearance of our punishment, if that makes sense. Did I have something else that I wanted to say? So, Gerald, what's your question or comment?
It wasn't necessarily a question. I was, like I said, and the guy highlighted the difference, and I know that's the point you're trying to make, the difference between the works of the law versus the book of the law. And of course, none of the prophets or Christ or anybody will contradict the laws of the Most High, his commands. We know they stand, they're true forever, whatever. And then we know that's how we're deemed righteous. So obviously, the first thing I would say is, and we've referred to it multiple times, these translations handing all the way down to us, I really don't even believe Paul said it like that. Like how we read it and how we're led to kind of trick ourselves up. I don't even think he said it like that. It's the translators that probably worded it that way that throw the loophole. But that's why we are told to dig for this truth, like hidden valuables and stuff like that. You got to go beyond the surface, and when you go beyond the surface, you'll see the difference. Because I think Christ, in one of his illustrations to the Pharisees, he was saying to them how, because they wanted people to like wash their hands, but not even just wash their hands, but all the way up to their elbows, and like that ain't in the law. Nowhere in the law tell them that they had to wash their hands all the way up to their elbows. So it's like they were doing certain things. They were saying certain things that was creating their own morph doctrine and stuff like that. And then on top of that, they ain't even want to believe the Messiah was who he was. So all of these modern day things that we're seeing right now, it's like the religious leaders in the first century of that day is very similar to the ones, nothing new under the sun. It's very similar to the ones we see today that's teaching anti-Messiah, traditions and doctrines of men, and not the Most High's laws. It's the same thing. So those things will be labeled under the works of the law that Paul supposedly is comparing to the actual book or the words of the Most High. Of course, he's not telling them, you ain't got to do what the Most High say. Christ then came, so we good now. Of course, he ain't saying that. But if you don't go beyond the surface, you can't tell the difference. And you're being misled by traditions and doctrines of men.
That's my understanding to this point, and I'm not ashamed to be wrong. I'm just a servant. I'm learning. We still in captivity, so I'm not ashamed for correction or anything. But that's my understanding to this point. Now, to your question, now does that make more sense that 2 and 16? Because it's saying, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law. That phrase is constantly being used. To our understanding, now we're seeing he's not saying us performing the Torah, but the traditions of men. Like I said, that's my understanding. And then I'll have, after Marah, it's just 2 closing slides, and then that's it. So just wanted to pass it to you. Any thoughts about any of it, and then whatever you wanted to say.
My conjecture is he's probably that breakdown. A lot going on with that. That's why I stopped posting classes. Going deep into our culture. I hate pirates. I hate vultures. So it really sounds like he's a vulture too. But I do think there's some validity to the contradiction. I saw it years ago, and I can't remember the classic one, but it is factual that Christ and Paul was comparing the oral law against our culture. Not Christ never talked against the law of Moses, but it was called law of Moses. So there's some truth to that. But we don't even have to go to that level. Just taking textual criticism and what you can do if you line up all Paul's letters and his statements and just get your own tally sheet where he says the law is good, and then compare those verses where it appears to be the law is not needed, and get your own tally and see how many times he supports the law versus how many times he's talking about grace. I'm willing to bet you're going to come with more check marks for his support of the law. Because even when his own life was on the line, when his own old Pharisee partners tried to get him killed, his whole defense to the Roman governor is, I've never transgressed the laws of my father. So Paul, to the Christian, how can Paul be preaching faith and grace, and then when his life was on the line for breaking the law, he tells them, I've never transgressed the laws of our fathers. So it's like we've been saying, if you take these letters at face value, Paul is a schizo. When you go to Greensboro, you're saying, Greensboro is my greatest fans. But then when you go to High Point, y'all my greatest fans. So it's really these editors, and we're going to name names. We're going to name names when we get to the New Testament. But just like we learned about the Old Testament, these teams were divvied up the scrolls. Y'all take these books, and y'all take these books. Now when we get together, y'all did a poor job of checking each other's work, and we get contradictions in y'all's scrolls. And this is the level that we're going to show these people the Bible is not the word of God. And people will hear that, oh my God, he don't believe it. No, the Most High is showing us, y'all have adulterated the works of my apostles and my prophets. So just with Galatians alone, if we remember that Galatians 2:16, that you're not justified by the law, in your same epistle, Paul, you're saying Galatians 5, I just pulled Galatians 5, Galatians 5:14. Galatians 5:14. So, okay, you want me to believe, Dr. Seminary, Pastor, and all y'all want me to believe that Galatians 2:16, Paul has said you won't be justified by the law. Okay, I got it. But then when you get to Galatians 5:14, he says, for all the law is fulfilled in one word, upon this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And when you look up that word fulfilled there, it's the same Greek word that they're saying Hamashiach said in Matthew 5:17. I have not come to destroy the law or the prophets, but to fulfill. It's a Greek word called pleroo. G4137 is pleroo. When you look up pleroo, it's to abound, to make plentiful. So let's put this back into the Greek context. Galatians 5:14, for the law, the Torah, is abound, is plentiful in one word. So when we take it to this level, you make Paul seem like a schizophrenic. And Paul's not a schizophrenic. His letters, like all the other writings of our elders, have been adulterated. Now, just to, while we on Galatians, what me and Gina went over this morning, I was going to save it, but your classes, all our classes just intertwines together. Galatians 3 is where they're going to take you. Galatians 3:19 is where the Christians are going to take you. And Galatians 3:19 says, wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of transgressions, so the seed should come to whom the promises was made. It was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator. So this editor wants us to believe that the law was added because of sin. And it's that old little metaphor we grew up with in the 80s. What came first, the chicken or the egg? But now we got text to go to. You're telling me the law was added because we were sinning. But when we go back to Genesis, by Rashad at the beginning, Adam was given instructions, and then he sinned.
And Jubilees.
Well, they don't.
They don't accept it.
You
Yeah.
can't use that on because they don't.
Yeah.
That ain't non-canon.
Right.
But what you do believe in your seminaries and your churches is Genesis.
Right.
When we go to Genesis, Adam was given instructions, Torah, directions, and then he disobeyed.
Right.
That was sin. So this text in Galatians 3 right here, somebody's lying. The law wasn't added because of sin. Sin came because there was a law given. It's like us in today's context. Cop pull you over, you ran the stop sign, and you tell him, well, if that stop sign wasn't there, I wouldn't have broke the law. That's what the Christians want us to believe. The law wasn't added because of sin. We only have sin because God gave us instructions. So again, if we're going to use the tools they told us in their schools, we would have to throw Galatians away because, Paul, you're contradicting yourself. You're saying in 2:16, no one is justified by the law, but then you take me to 5:14 or 19, you're saying the law is abounded, it's plentiful in one commandment. This is the level that Christians don't want to go through. Just give me them sound bites. Let me cherry pick this. Let me get you sweating and running around and high-fiving everybody, and we'll pass the Torah up. And now you got a whole church going to hell because y'all running with grace, 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 and faith.
Thank you for that, Marah. But also too, 5 and 14, right? It says, for all the law is abound in one word, even this, that thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Doesn't that sound like a precept to, on these two hang all the law? He's basically just saying that love thy neighbor as thyself is a way to sum up the rest of it.
You know you good.
That makes sense. So I'm like, dang, when you said that, that precept came into my mind. And even not to go deep into it, because some of this that we're reading, like I got a lot of this highlighted in white, and I told you that means like you gotta pay attention or it's tricky or something. But even on Galatians 3 verse 21, it says, is the law then against the promises of the Most High? The Most High forbid. For if there had been a law given which could have been given life, verily righteous should have been by the law. But it tells you that the good fruits of the law is life. So this writing is something's off with this writing.
I don't know if we're gonna get back to it, but we're gonna break down the so-called New Testament. And these pagans have did this to fit their theology into the letters. That's why it reads like that.
And
Salakia, not to cut you off, but I just wanted to speak to exactly what y'all just said so I don't lose it, because there's a few things. So what you just said is also what Christ told the young ruler. You know, so what must I do to attain everlasting life? Well, how do you understand the commandments? You know, and he recited the commandments, and he said he was doing that. So in that sense, he was, like I said, he was in line. Christ told him, this is how you get life. So if what you just referred to that Paul supposedly said, if that's what he meant, that you couldn't get life from the law, then that contradicts the whole purpose of giving it to him. You know, I also want to say too, and this is just simple. When you think about it, and I don't know if somebody said this before, if y'all thought about it, but so if Christ just checked the Pharisees when he was on the earth, before Paul was converted, blinded, whatever the case may be, if he checked the Pharisees and told them what they were teaching and everything they believed was traditions of man and it was contrary to the laws of the Most High, that's clear. Can't nobody get around that. So when Paul now gets converted, remember, Paul is a Pharisee upon Pharisees. So everything that Christ was just checking, Paul believed that. He lived it devoutly. He did it to the point where he was killing believers of Christ, followers of the law, for not doing what they were saying do, and we can only assume that those righteous ones like Stephen and all of them, they were in line with the righteous requirements of the Father. Paul was killing them. So now Paul converts. He was already a Pharisee of the Pharisees. He converts, and now he's on the side of the very ones that he was killing. He's on their side now. So he's not under the traditions of man no more. He ain't stressing that stuff no more. He's now on the side of falling back in line with the covenant, falling back in line with all of that. So when you think of that, why would Paul now be saying that he's no longer a Pharisee? He threw that away. That's trash. He converted. Why would he now be saying something that a Pharisee would be saying?
Right.
Like
Right.
it don't make sense. Like he switched sides. So he wouldn't be on the opposite side of Christ.
Dang.
Makes no sense.
That's another great point.
You be doing too much.
Yeah.
That's a great point, man. That's a great point. I gotta be honest, I ain't even think of it that way. That's good. That's good. Why would he be opposed to what Hamashiach is saying? Man, that's why we say it's not him, it's the Christians who have summarized or tried to portray what he was saying when that's not what he was saying, if that makes sense. As we brought that to a conclusion about the Galatians and hopefully brought some understanding on the differences of way that things are written, there's a couple slides and it just going back and further reiterating, and this is the Messiah's words that we have to do something. And then what is his reward going to be, and how is his reward based? And then what's the difference between the wise man and the foolish man? And that's it. So this is Matthew 7:21 through 23. And just getting Mariah right to it. Just getting Mariah right to it. Getting Mariah right to it. You go ahead. Matthew 7:21. Shema.
Not everyone that saith unto me, Master, Master, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven.
But which ones?
But he that doeth the will of my Father, which is in heaven.
So you can't enter into the kingdom. Everyone is not entering into the kingdom of the Shemayim, which is the kingdom from heaven, which is on earth. New Jerusalem, the kingdom with the Father return, not in heaven. But the ones that do enter into that kingdom are the ones that do the will of the Most High. What is the will of the Most High?
The law.
Verse 22.
22. Many will say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work lawlessness.
Workers of iniquity, arbitrators of sin, people who promote sin, workers of iniquity. Nah, I didn't.
What that say about his Easter celebration? Did y'all see the clip?
We doing everything short of sin. Michael Todd said,
Yeah.
You doing everything including sin.
Me and Ryan,
Oh, I did see that. I did.
Posted, and I seen you had posted right before.
Yeah, because he did that dance
he
thing.
said we doing everything
Yeah.
short of sin.
They said, what we gonna do? And I told them, we're gonna do everything short of sinning.
Because he said we gotta push it to the envelope. I don't want it to just
Be whack.
Yeah, he pretty much wanted to be like a spectacular.
It was embarrassing.
He was like, well,
Yeah.
how far you want to take it? He said, we're gonna take it just short of sin.
Yeah, because they basically had like a concert, women, provocative dancing and all that. But to justify that, that's the statements he was making. That's what they're saying.
Right.
That's what they're saying. So he would be one of those ones who have prophesied, quote unquote, in the name of, Yahushua, so they think, and done many wonderful works according to what they think. And then Yahushua can be like, depart from me, I never knew you, you worker of lawlessness. Right. So we read this. I remember pointing this out to Marion. May the Most High be with them as they're traveling and in Kentucky right now. But when Marah did his class, this was one of the things that we brought out at the end there. So this is the rewards according to what? And Revelation, according to them, is the last book. It's the end. It's the end of the book. So it's Revelation chapter 22, verse 12 through 17. And just Shema, and it's on you whenever, Nariah.
The book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 12. And behold, I come quickly. Oh, he said, hold on.
Oh, never.
Yeah, he got it.
You good? Verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be.
You see that? He said he's coming to bring his reward according to what every man's work shall be, not faith. And if you were confused by Paul, all the things we brought out from before, that's why I think the Most High had me do it that way, because all those things we brought out before should have established some type of foundation in you. Let's say you got muddied up in the middle. Now you get to the end. He's explaining again what he's coming for. So read it again.
Verse 12, Revelation chapter 22, verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be.
Your work will show your faith. Your work will show your belief. So you're judged by your work because it's your faith that I'm not in the Torah. Keep going.
Verse 13. I am the I and Tithe, the beginning and the end, the first and the last.
I am him. Go ahead. That's what he's saying there. I'm the truth. 14.
Blessed are they that do his commandments.
You have to be a doer. So I went to works. Then I went to how will you be saved? How will you be judged? What is your reward? What is the Messiah going to do when he comes? That was the whole part one. Then it was turning into be ye a doer. He just started his thing off, said, I'm coming to judge you according to your works. Then he turns right back around and says, blessed are they that do something. I couldn't even make this up. Like I didn't even plan it that way.
This might just be the I believe spirit freaking. I believe verse 14 and 15 and how shall I still speak. Because think about it. It's in red in verse 12. And then it says, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city.
Well, I believe that too, even though if it's not in red, because you know that in the beginning, it's from the Most High to Yahushua to John. So really the whole thing is right. Or Yahushua. So you're not incorrect. And when you go to 16, he goes back and says, I, Yahushua, have sent. So you can't be far off from that. But go ahead.
Verse 15. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. I, Yahushua, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the assemblies. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. And the Ruach and the bride say, come. And let him that heareth say, come. And let him that is athirst come.
and whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely.
Whosoever drinks from shall never thirst again. I am him. Golly, I don't even, it's crazy. So Yahushua is just putting it out because it's like one big parable, one big equation, like the same thing repeating over and over and over again. And then go ahead.
I was thinking about this when I was in the car, and you just said exactly the way it was in my heart. So, I mean, we can't really go too deep into it, but I just had the thoughts that maybe the Most High made Paul speak the way he spoke, because since Yahushua spoke in parables to trip up the quote unquote wise so they can be snared, Paul is similarly doing the same thing, the way he's speaking, a mixture of that and of course these pagans messing up the text to be a snare for these modern day Pharisees and Sadducees.
Well, at first I was gonna kind of say the part about the English, but Peter even said that his writings is just hard to understand. So I can't say why that was the case, but the fact that he was someone who was well versed in the law, he was educated, he was really smart. So how like if we read something from like a lawyer and it'd be like, what are you saying? I don't know what they're saying, right? So he may have had that issue. That's conjecture, I guess.
Yeah, and the precept that had me thinking this way is when Yahushua visited Paul, or the messenger that he sent to speak to Paul so the scales would come off his eyes. He said he's a vessel unto me, and he gonna pretty much go through the same thing I went through for my name's sake. And we know name in Hebrew is Sham. So Yahushua's reputation, he spoke in parables to the powerful and made it plain to the humble and meek. So that's just what had me thinking on that level, as far as maybe this is the way the Most High. Of course, we know this is all the Most High's will, but maybe that was how he did this thing with Shalom, to have him confound the wise and make it plain to the humble and meek again.
I mean, like I said, it's not something I could say that it's proof or not, but it's the Most High did something for choosing him that way. And I'll go ahead and close this out so we can any comments. My book is still turned to Galatians, and I'm seeing stuff that I got underlined that Marab brought out or that we've read, and it's like, yeah, he can't be, like you said, if you took a tally, So Yahushua is telling you here at the end about his reward, his judgment, who is blessed and who is not blessed. And then here we started in Matthew 7 in the beginning earlier, and we did verse 21 through 26 or 25. And he talked about the wise man was the one that hear the word and then he do the word, and then that house is built on a strong foundation. Now he's coming back and telling you all of this, and I put this at the end because it's like, after all of those things, if you hear these sayings and doeth them not, then you will be equated to a foolish man. And that's why I put that at the end. And in that song, he covers it too. And then that's just the end of it. And we'll let it rock out. He's gonna read it. Babylon is fallen. Their house is built upon sand. So when the wind comes and blows it away, it's out of here. So that's the class. Hopefully that made sense. Works. And I pretty much had left this. I left this time right here. If anybody just had any, I had some one-offs or some precepts that came last minute, but like I said, the class is done. But just because my page was turned here, like you brought out Galatians 5, even if you go right to verse 16, because you read 14, it says, I'm sorry, you might want to turn there. So just Shema when you have it. Yeah, 5. He goes right in and says, this I say then, walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. So if we keep it in context, Romans 7 told you that the law was spiritual. So if we're going to walk in the spirit, that means we got to keep the law. And then if you don't want to be in the flesh, then you have to keep the commandments. And he says that in 7:25. And he actually, if you go down to verse 19, he says 18, but if you be led of the spirit, you are not under the law, meaning that the condemnation or the judgments of the law is not gonna condemn you because you're walking in righteousness. But what are the works of the flesh? He tells you that in 19. Adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, and et cetera, et cetera. So he's listing sins is walking after the flesh. And then we just go on and he gives you the fruit of the spirit. And then verse 25, he says, if we live in spirit, let us walk in spirit. He's basically telling you, let us keep the commandments. It's something else. That's all I can say. But that's it. Any
I just want to add to 2 things. For the Galatians 5 you just brought out, this generation did not teach a Trinity. So when they mention by the Spirit, this whole generation knows he's talking about the Most High. That's A. And then B, I want to go back to your last closing scripture, Matthew 7.
okay.
Matthew 7 is all red letter. Matthew 7 is all Messiah talk. And in the verse that you ended with, he says, if you keep these, verse 26, and everyone who do these sayings of mine, well, you gotta remember, Hamashiach said, I think in John 10, he says, my doctrine is not my own.
But of him that sent me.
So when you go to Matthew 7, he says, do these sayings of mine. This is the Father talking about him. The only sayings that the Father ever gave us is the covenant. This is another witness. This text is Google. And you under the Greco-Roman seminary spell and the spell of the Christian church, you're never going to see this. Right? You're never going to see this. All praise to the Most High God.
All praise. Anybody else had anything online? Once, twice.